My grandson was standing in my guest room with a tape measure when he said it. Nathan had one end hooked against the window trim. The other ran across Lori's old sewing table. He looked down at the numbers, pressed the lock with his thumb, and said, "They can fit the dresser here if they move this table." I stayed in the doorway. "Who can?" He glanced up. "Mom and Dad." Nathan was 24. He wasn't careless with words. That was why the tape measure bothered me less than the answer. "What are your parents doing with my guest room?" His face changed. "Not much, but enough." "They're moving in?" "According to whom?" "Mom said you agreed." I took one step into the room. Nathan lowered the tape. "She said it was settled," he added. "They were moving in after you forgot." "After I forgot." That's how she put it. I pulled Lori's chair away from the wall and sat down. I didn't need the chair, but I wanted Nathan to see that I wasn't confused about where I was or what we were discussing. "When did your mother tell you this?" "Last night." "And when are they planning to move?" He hesitated. "The truck's booked for Saturday. That was 4 days away." "My name is Charles Holt, and I'm 69 years old." "What city are you listening from?" "I've lived in Hilo most of my life. My house sits off Canule Street, far enough back that road noise becomes a low wash when it rains. The place isn't grand. It has 3 bedrooms, a covered lanai, and a detached workshop that still smells like pipe dope and old cedar drawers. I bought it with my wife Lori when our knees were better and the roof was worse. We repaired it room by room. She chose the pale green kitchen cabinets. I built the workshop. We argued about both. Lori died in 2021. She was 64. Afterward, I kept finding her hair ties in places that didn't make sense. One was around the gear shift of my truck. Another was looped over the faucet under the laundry sink. I left that one there. It stayed until the rubber cracked and fell apart in my hand. The guest room Nathan was measuring had been Lori's sewing room. After she died, I moved the machine into its case, but left the table. I still called it her sewing table, even though nobody had sewn there in 5 years. Nathan stood in front of me, holding the tape measure like something he'd been caught stealing. I said, "Put that back in your pocket." He did. "Then sit down." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Before I tell you what happened next, I need to go back." "Not far. Just far enough to explain why my daughter-in-law believed she could arrange a moving truck before she had my permission. A year after Lori died, my son Todd started Holt Plumbing with his wife Melissa. Todd was 41 then. He'd worked in the trade long enough to know the work, but he didn't hold the contractor qualification the business needed. Melissa handled the office, estimates, payroll, and suppliers. She was organized and quick. Todd was good with customers and better with his hands than he gave himself credit for. I had earned my contractor qualification in 2008. By 2022, I was semi-retired. I still took small jobs for people I knew, but I was done crawling through restaurant grease traps at midnight. Todd came to my workshop one Sunday morning with coffee and a folder. He set both on my bench. "I need to ask you something. That coffee for me? It's black." Then you remembered. He smiled. "I remember some things." Inside the folder were the papers for the new company. Holt Plumbing would use me as its responsible managing employee. RME was the ordinary shorthand. It meant my individual contractor license would qualify the company, and I would provide real supervision. It wasn't a name-only arrangement. Todd leaned against the bench. "We can pay you a stipend," he said. "It won't be much at first." "How much is not much?" he told me. I looked at him over the folder. "That's less than you spend on coffee." "Probably." "And you expect me to inspect work?" "Yes." "Handle callbacks?" "The ugly ones." "Review anything that depends on my license?" "Yes." I waited. Todd rubbed his palms on his jeans. "I know what you're thinking. I doubt it. You're thinking I should have done this earlier." "No. I'm thinking you finally asked me directly. That mattered in our family." Todd had a habit of circling a request until somebody offered. Lori used to catch him doing it. She'd say, "Todd, your father isn't a vending machine. Use a full sentence." I could almost hear her that morning, so I told him, "Ask." He straightened. "Dad, will you be the RME for Holt Plumbing while I build the company?" "Yes." His shoulders dropped. He walked around the bench and hugged me. Todd wasn't much of a hugger. Neither am I. It lasted about 2 seconds, but I carried those 2 seconds for a long time. That's the honest part. I didn't do it for the stipend. I did it because my son needed me, and I mistook being needed for being close. My contractor pocket card stayed in the locked center drawer of my workshop desk. My login for the state licensing portal stayed there too, written in a small address book Lori had once used for Christmas cards. I never gave Melissa the password. She asked twice during the first month. The first time, she said it would make renewals easier. I said, I'll handle my own license. The second time, she said, what if something happens and we need access? I said, then Todd calls me. She smiled, but the smile ended before she turned away. For the first couple of years, the arrangement worked. Todd called before difficult jobs. I inspected rough-ins, checked finished work, and talked him through mistakes without embarrassing him in front of customers. Melissa paid the stipend on the first Friday of each month. The deposit memo always said RME Services. It was a small amount, but the wording mattered. It showed exactly what I was being paid to do. I kept copies of inspection notes in my desk. Nothing fancy. Date, address, problem, correction, initials. That habit came from running crews. If a pipe disappeared behind drywall, I wanted to know who saw it first. At first, Melissa liked my notes. You're keeping us professional, she told me. Later, she called them unnecessary paperwork. The change happened slowly enough that I blamed myself for noticing. Todd stopped coming by without a reason. If he pulled into my driveway, there was a valve in his hand or a question waiting in the truck. Melissa called when she needed a signature, a customer calmed down, or an invoice explained. They invited me to dinner, but dinner usually ended with a folder beside my plate. I still went. One evening, Melissa served baked chicken and rice at their place. Nathan was working late and wasn't there. Todd had barely finished eating when Melissa slid an estimate across the table. Can you look at the labor hours? I wiped my hands on a napkin. Tonight? The customer wants it in the morning. I read it while they cleared the dishes. When I found the labor allowance was too low, Melissa sighed. We're trying to be competitive, Charles. You'll lose money at that number. We can make it up elsewhere. Where? She opened the refrigerator and stared inside as if an answer might be behind the milk. Todd said, Dad's probably right. Melissa shut the door. I didn't say he was wrong. I corrected the estimate. They submitted it the next morning and got the job. Nobody mentioned that my higher labor figure kept them from losing nearly $4,000. A week later, Todd called about a restaurant sink backing up during lunch service. I drove over, found a bad vent connection, and helped him repair it before the dinner crowd arrived. He slapped my shoulder in the parking lot. Save me again? That sentence felt good. Too good. I should have paid attention to that. By early 2026, Holt Plumbing had grown into a rented office with 2 service trucks and a small crew. Melissa wanted a county contract worth $680,000. It was the kind of job that could keep them busy for months and put their name on a different level. She talked about it constantly. The sealed bid solicitation stayed at the company office. She kept it in a blue folder marked County and carried that folder from her desk to meetings like it was a winning lottery ticket. One Monday, she asked me to come in. The office was in a low concrete building with a cracked parking lot. Todd was out on a job. Melissa had printed the bid requirements and covered half the conference table with yellow tabs. She pointed to a chair. We need to show depth, she said. What kind of depth? Operational depth, experience, stability. Those are words. What do you need from me? She tapped my license number on the company information sheet. You're central to the qualification. I know. We need you available during the contract period for license supervision, for whatever comes up. That's not the same thing, she folded her arms. Why are you making it difficult? I'm making it specific. Her mouth tightened, then she changed her tone. Fine. Specific. If we win, Todd will be overwhelmed. I'll be buried in administration. We're going to need family cooperation. What cooperation? We'll figure it out. That answer stayed with me. When I got home, I found 3 glossy pamphlets on my kitchen counter. One advertised a medical alert button. One showed an older couple smiling in an assisted living apartment. The third was about organizing care for an aging parent. I stood there with my truck keys in my hand. Melissa had been at the house that morning. She'd dropped off receipts for me to review. I knew the pamphlets hadn't been there when I left because I'd wiped the counter after breakfast. I called her. She answered on the 4th ring. Hey, Charles, did you leave some pamphlets in my kitchen? A pause. Oh, those. I picked them up for a client's mother. Why are they in my house? I must have set them down with the receipts. The receipts were on my workshop desk. Another pause. Then I guess I carried the pamphlets inside first. I don't know. I looked at the assisted living couple. They were holding hands beside a swimming pool. I said, "You can take them next time you're here." She laughed lightly. "Unless you want to browse." "I don't." "All right. Don't bite my head off." I asked a question, and I answered. She ended the call before I could say anything else. That evening, Todd came by for the receipts. I handed him the pamphlets too. He glanced at the covers. "What's this?" "Your wife left them on my kitchen counter." He pushed them into the receipt envelope. "Probably for somebody else." "That's what she said." He nodded too quickly. I waited for him to look at me. He didn't. As he walked toward his truck, I said, "Todd?" He turned. "Is there something you think I need to know?" "No." "Why?" "Because those pamphlets were placed where I'd find them." He gave a small shrug. "Melissa gets ahead of herself." "With what?" "I don't know, Dad. She's got the county bid on her brain." He left without answering. 2 days later, Melissa invited herself to lunch at my house. She brought takeout from a place on Canule Street and spread the containers across my kitchen table. For 10 minutes, she talked about insurance certificates and material prices. Then she looked toward the hallway. "You have a lot of unused space here." I set down my fork. "Do I?" 3 bedrooms for one person. One is mine, one is a guest room, one is an office. You know what I mean. I know what rooms are. She smiled as if I were teasing. "I'm just thinking ahead. If Holt Plumbing gets the contract, housing savings could help stabilize cash flow." "Whose housing savings?" She stirred rice around her container. "Ours, hypothetically. If Todd and I didn't have a mortgage payment, we could put more into the company. And where would you live?" She looked directly at me. "Here." I didn't raise my voice. "No?" Her fork stopped. I said, hypothetically. And I answered clearly. "We'd help you with the house. I didn't ask for help. It would be temporary." "No. You haven't even thought about it. I don't need time to decide who moves into my home." Todd had entered through the kitchen door while she was speaking. He stood there with his work shirt damp across the shoulders. Melissa turned to him. "Your father thinks I'm trying to take over." Todd looked from her to me. I said, "She asked about moving in." I said no. He set his keys on the counter. "Okay." Melissa stared at him. "That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say?" "That it makes sense." Todd rubbed the back of his neck. "Maybe this isn't the time. That wasn't support. It was delay wearing a polite shirt." Melissa closed her takeout container. "Fine. Forget I mentioned it." "I won't forget," I said. Her eyes held mine for a second. Then she gathered the food and walked out. Todd stayed behind. I asked, "Did you know she was going to bring that up?" "She's stressed." That wasn't my question. He picked up his keys. She talks through ideas. She gave me an idea. I gave her an answer. He nodded. I watched him leave through the same door. That afternoon, I went into my workshop and locked it behind me. I opened the center desk drawer and took out my contractor pocket card. Then I opened Lori's old address book and checked that my licensing credentials were still where I had left them. They were. I put both items back, locked the drawer, and wrote the date on a clean sheet of paper. Under it, I wrote one sentence. Melissa proposed that she and Todd move into my house, and I refused. Then I put the sheet beneath my inspection notes. The next morning, Todd called at 6:40. I was making coffee. Lori's old mug sat upside down beside the sink. I still used the mug she'd bought me, the one that said, "World's Okayest Plumber." The lettering had faded, but the handle fit my fingers. Todd said, "You busy?" "I'm standing in my kitchen." "So, not yet. What do you need?" He laughed. "I need your ears." That was his way of asking for advice, without admitting he needed it. He had a rattling pressure regulator at a house near Waiakea. He described the sound, the pipe size, and what happened when 2 fixtures ran together. I told him, "Check the support before you replace anything. You think it's movement?" "I think you should check." He called again 20 minutes later. "You were right. Was the strap loose?" "Missing." "Put one in?" "That's why I called you." "No, you called because you wanted permission to replace a regulator." He laughed again. "You know me too well." I wanted that to feel like affection. For a while, it did. That afternoon, I stopped at the Holt Plumbing office to review a commercial water heater installation. Melissa was on the phone when I arrived. She held up one finger without looking at me. I waited beside her desk. The Blue County folder was open in front of her. I could see the bid schedule and a list of required attachments. My license number had been highlighted in yellow. Melissa ended the call. "Can you sign this before you leave?" She slid a form toward me. "What is it?" "Just an acknowledgement." I read it. It wasn't connected to the water heater. It confirmed that I would remain available as the company's RME throughout the expected county contract. I set it down. "This says more than that. It says you'll remain available. It says the company expects continuous qualification through the work. That's what available means." "No. Available means I answer my phone. This says you planned around my license." She leaned back. "We have planned around your license. You know that. I know the company uses it. I don't agree to sign papers without discussing them. What's there to discuss? How much work you expect? What I'm reviewing. Whether you're bidding jobs your crew can handle." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you questioning our capacity? I'm asking what I'd be responsible for. You wouldn't be responsible for daily operations." Then change the form. Melissa picked it up and dropped it on the county folder. "You make everything sound suspicious. I read before I sign. I know. Todd warned me." There was something in the way she said it, not anger, familiar irritation. Todd warned her that his father read things. I looked toward his empty desk. "When will he be back? He's running calls all day. He knew I was coming. He's busy, Charles." "So am I." She gave me a tired smile. "You're semi-retired." That was the first time she used those words to mean my time belonged to them. I went into the small conference room and reviewed the water heater file. The photographs were incomplete. I called Todd. "Where's the vent connection?" "What?" "The final photograph. I can't see the connection." "It's there. Not in what I received." He lowered his voice. "Can you approve it from the rough-in photos?" "No." "Dad, it's done. Then take a picture. I'm across town. Send somebody." Melissa appeared in the doorway. She had heard enough to understand. She said, "The customer already signed." I covered the phone with my hand. "The customer isn't the RME." Her jaw tightened. Todd said into my ear, "I'll get the photo." Good. 25 minutes later, it arrived. The connection was correct. I signed the inspection note and left. That was a small thing, but it answered one question. They weren't asking me to supervise only when supervision helped. They wanted my approval after they had already decided the answer. The cost of saying no was just as clear. Todd sent the photograph, but he didn't call me again that day. For the next week, nobody did. It sounds childish when I say it that plainly. I was a grown man with a house, work, neighbors, and enough sense to make my own breakfast. Still, every time my phone lit up, I looked for Todd's name. Most of the calls I'd received from him had been about plumbing. I knew that. What I didn't like admitting was that I missed them anyway. On Friday, I drove to the office because the monthly stipend hadn't arrived. Melissa was eating yogurt at her desk. I said, "The RME payment is late." She kept looking at her screen. "Payroll's tight." "Then tell me before it's late. It'll clear Monday." "Is the crew paid?" She looked up. "Of course." "Suppliers?" "Yes." "Rent?" "Yes, Charles." "So, you chose mine." "It's a nominal stipend." "That's what we agreed to. Nominal doesn't mean optional." She pushed the yogurt aside. "We're carrying costs for the bid. Once the county work starts, this won't matter. It matters now." "Do you need the money?" That question caught me. Not because I needed it. I didn't. Because she thought need was the only reason an agreement counted. I said, "Pay it Monday." She folded her arms. "It will be paid." As I turned toward the door, she said, "I don't understand why you're suddenly keeping score." I faced her again. "I've always kept records. This isn't a record. It feels personal. You made a company payment late. I asked about it, after everything we do for each other. I waited for an example." She didn't give one. Outside, I sat in my truck with the windows down. The air smelled like hot pavement and rain. I opened my phone and checked the last month of calls from Todd. There were 11. 9 were plumbing questions. 1 was a request to pick up a part. The last was about the dinner where Melissa had handed me an estimate. I scrolled back another month. The pattern held. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat. Lori had seen that part of me before I did. If somebody needed a faucet fixed, a ride to the airport, or a loaned tool, I showed up early. Then I treated their relief like proof they wanted me there. Once, years earlier, Lori had watched me repair a neighbor's water line during our anniversary dinner. When I came back inside, muddy to my knees, she said, You know you can let people miss you. Their water was off. I'm not talking about their water. I'd kissed her cheek and changed the subject. Sitting in the truck, I finally understood what she meant. I had taught Todd that calling with a problem was enough. I answered every time. I came running. I never made him practice calling just to ask how I was. That didn't excuse him. It did explain why I had accepted so little and called it closeness. The stipend arrived Monday morning. The memo no longer said RME services. It said consulting. I called Melissa. She answered quickly. You got it? I did. Good. The memo changed. Silence. Then she said, it's an accounting label. It was already labeled correctly. Consulting covers more of what you do. My role is in general consulting. You advise us. I supervise licensed work tied to my qualification. Same difference? No. She exhaled into the phone. Do you want me to reverse the payment over one word? I want the next payment labeled correctly. You're being very particular. Yes. Fine. She ended the call. An hour later, Todd texted me. Can you stop poking Melissa over little stuff? I read it twice. Then I typed, the RME arrangement isn't little stuff. He didn't reply. That Wednesday, Nathan came by to borrow a socket set. He found me in the workshop cleaning scale from an old pipe wrench. He knocked on the open door. Grandpa? Nathan had called me Grandpa since he was old enough to choose names, and he still said it the same way. No embarrassment, no attempt to make it sound adult. I looked up. What did you break? Nothing yet? He held up both hands. My truck's battery bracket is loose. Dad said you might have a deep socket that fits. Your father has sockets. He said yours are better. Your father loses his. That too. I opened the tool cabinet and found the right set. Nathan stood beside the bench, looking at the pipe wrench. Was that Grandma's? The wrench? She used to say she had one with her name on it. I turned the handle. Near the jaw, Lori was scratched into the metal. She bought it because I kept stealing the one from her garden shed. Nathan smiled. Grandma had a pipe wrench in the garden shed. She used it to turn a stubborn sprinkler valve. Did she know what she was doing? Usually more than I did. He ran his thumb over her name. Then his phone rang. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. Nathan answered, Hey, Mom. I went back to the wrench. He listened for a few seconds. I'm at Grandpa's. Another pause. No, I came for the sockets. He looked at me. Yeah, I can check. He lowered the phone. Mom wants to know if you got a letter from the state. What letter? He spoke into the phone. He says what letter? Melissa's voice was loud enough that I heard the shape of it, but not the words. Nathan said, Okay, and ended the call. What did she say? She said it might be in your mail. Why would she know what's in my mail? She said she saw it online. What kind of letter? Something about a license renewal. My renewal wasn't due yet. The board sometimes mailed reminders early, but Melissa had never asked about one before. I went inside. A stack of mail sat at the end of the kitchen counter. I had brought it in the previous afternoon and left it unopened. There were 2 utility envelopes, a hardware catalog, a bank statement, and a county property notice. No state envelope. I checked the recycling bin. Nothing. Nathan stood near the kitchen door. Maybe it hasn't come. Maybe. He shifted the socket set from one hand to the other. Mom was here yesterday. When? Before she picked me up for lunch. She said she had to grab company papers from you. I wasn't home. She knew. That landed quietly. I walked back to the workshop and checked the desk. My inspection notes were where I'd left them. The county receipts were gone, which was expected. Nothing else looked disturbed. I called Melissa. She answered with, Did you find it? No. Well, maybe it comes tomorrow. What company papers did you collect from my house yesterday? The receipts. Where did you get them? Your workshop. The workshop was locked. She paused. The kitchen, then? You must have left them there. I didn't. Charles, I don't remember where every piece of paper was sitting. But you remember a letter that I haven't seen. I told you there was an online notice. What notice? The board sends reminders. To me. And the company has an interest in your renewal. That doesn't answer my question. Her voice sharpened. What are you accusing me of? I asked whether you took mail from my house. No. Did you enter my workshop? No. Then how did you collect receipts from a locked room? I'm not doing this with you. She hung up. Nathan stared at the floor. I'm sorry, he said. You didn't do anything. I told her where you keep the spare key. I looked at him. When? A while ago. She needed a fitting from the workshop. Dad said it was fine. Your father doesn't decide who enters my workshop. I know that now. He looked sick about it. I believed him. Where did you tell her it was? Under the rain gauge. I went outside. The magnetic key box was still there. The key inside was gone. Nathan followed me. I can call her. No. You've answered what I needed. That was the small truth I recovered. Melissa had access, and Todd had treated that access as his to give. I changed the workshop lock that afternoon. At 4:30, someone knocked on my front door. Melissa stood there holding a grocery bag. She raised it toward me. You wanted your mail. Inside were 6 envelopes. My licensing reminder was at the front, still sealed. Behind it were 2 bank statements, a property tax notice, and ordinary advertising. I took the bag. Why did you have these? I was helping. I didn't ask you to. You leave important things sitting around. In my house. You could have missed the renewal. It isn't due for months. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. She looked past me into the hallway. I worry about you here alone. You took my key and my mail. Todd gave me permission to get company records. Todd can't give permission for my house. She crossed her arms. You're turning a misunderstanding into something ugly. I removed the new workshop key from my pocket and held it where she could see. The lock has been changed. Her face went still. If the company needs a record, ask me. If mail has my name on it, leave it alone. We're family. Yes, you don't act like it. I shut the door without answering. Then I opened every envelope at the kitchen table. The licensing reminder was routine. No deadline had been missed. No access had been lost. I placed it in my locked desk with my pocket card and credentials. On the same sheet where I had recorded Melissa's proposal, I added the missing key, the removed mail, and the date she returned it. When I finished, I read both entries. For the first time, I didn't ask what Melissa needed from me. I asked what she believed she was entitled to take. The next morning, I wrote a 1-page list of conditions for my company work. I didn't use legal language. I used the same language I'd used with crews for years. I needed job addresses before work began. I needed estimates for anything my license covered. I needed photographs before walls closed. I would inspect completed work before approving it. Questions involving my qualification had to come directly to me. At the bottom, I added one line about access. No company employee or family member had permission to enter my house or workshop without asking me first. I printed 2 copies and drove to the office. Todd's truck was outside. Melissa's car was parked beside it. They were in the conference room with the Blue County folder between them. Melissa closed it when I entered. Todd said, "Morning." I put 1 copy in front of each of them. "What's this?" Melissa asked. "My working conditions." She read the first few lines. "We already do this. Not consistently." Todd picked up his copy. "Is this because of the mail?" "It includes the mail." Melissa said, "I returned everything. You shouldn't have taken it. I was trying to prevent a problem. You created one." Todd raised his hand slightly. "Can we slow down?" I looked at him. "Did you tell Melissa she could use my spare key?" He stared at the paper. "For the workshop one time." "Did you ask me?" "You weren't home. We needed a fitting. You own a plumbing company. It was a specific fitting. Then call me." Melissa slid her copy back across the table. "I'm not signing this. I didn't ask you to sign." "What do you want then?" "I want you to follow it." She looked at Todd. He rubbed his forehead. "Dad, we can send the job addresses. All of them. You know most of them already. I know the ones you call me about." Melissa said, "You don't need every estimate. Most of that is pricing. Pricing decides labor. Labor decides whether work gets rushed. We're not rushing work. Then showing me won't be a problem." Her chair made a sharp sound against the floor when she stood. "We have a bid due. Todd has a crew to manage. I have payroll, insurance, and suppliers. Now you want us to build another reporting system because I picked up some envelopes. No. I want enough information to perform the role you're paying me for." She walked to the window. Todd said, "How often do you want a list?" "Every Monday. Active jobs, scheduled starts, and anything waiting for approval." He nodded. "We can do that." Melissa turned. "Who's going to make it?" "You are," I said. Her eyes went cold. Todd stepped in before she answered. "I'll make it." I looked at him. "Will you?" "Yes." "Then send the first one today." He said he would. I left my copy on the conference table and drove home. At noon, an email arrived from Todd. It contained a plain list with 6 active jobs: 2 residential repairs, 1 restaurant remodel, a warehouse bathroom, the commercial water heater I had already reviewed, and a small office renovation. The county bid wasn't listed because it hadn't been awarded. That made sense. I printed the list and compared it with my inspection notes. The 6 jobs matched what I knew. My deliberate move had worked. For about 3 hours, I thought the problem might be contained. Then someone knocked on my door. A woman stood outside with a leather folder and a canvas bag. She looked to be around Melissa's age. She wore flat shoes and a name badge that said Dana Home Planning Services. Mr. Holt? Yes. I'm Dana. We had a 2 o'clock appointment. No, we didn't. She checked her phone. Charles Holt, Canool Street area, Home Safety and Family Transition Assessment. Who scheduled it? She looked uncomfortable. Melissa Holt. What did she tell you? I may have the wrong date. You have the right address. I'm asking what she told you. Dana held the folder against her chest. She said the family was considering a shared living arrangement. She wanted someone to look at access, bathroom safety, and use of the bedrooms. I kept one hand on the door. Did she say I agreed? She said there had been some confusion. What kind of confusion? Dana looked toward the driveway, then back at me. She said you'd discussed a transition plan and might not remember all the details. I'm not qualified to evaluate memory. I only assess the home. There it was. Melissa had taken a private disagreement and turned it into a condition. I said, there is no shared living arrangement. You don't have permission to assess my house. I understand. I also need you to note that I refused because I never requested this visit. She opened her folder and wrote something on the top page. I can do that. Please write that I was clear about it. She nodded. I will. I asked for her card. She handed it to me. Her phone number and company address were printed beneath her name. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, she said. You didn't create it. She returned to her car and left. I stood in the doorway until the car turned out of sight. Then I called Todd. He answered over the sound of running water. Can I call you back? No. Did you know Melissa scheduled a home assessment? A what? A woman just came to inspect my house for your move. The water stopped. She actually went over there? You knew. I knew Melissa talked to somebody. What did you think they were discussing? Safety stuff? Grab bars? Things like that. Why would I need grab bars? I don't know. Eventually everybody does. That isn't an answer. He lowered his voice. Melissa said the consultation was free. That isn't an answer either. Dad, I'm in a customer's yard. Then step away from the customer. I heard a gate close. Todd said, okay, I'm away. Did you tell Melissa you were moving into my house? No. Did you tell her you weren't? Silence. I waited. Finally, he said, we've talked about options. My house isn't an option. I know what you said. Then why did you let her send somebody? I didn't let her. Melissa handles things. You're her husband and her business partner. What do you want me to do? Monitor every phone call? I want you to answer one question without hiding behind her schedule. He was quiet again. I said, do you believe you're moving into my house? No. The answer came softly, but it came. That was useful. It wasn't enough. Have you told Melissa that? Not like that. Try those exact words. Dad, I have to go. This time, I ended the call. Melissa called less than 5 minutes later. I let it ring twice before answering. You embarrassed that woman, she said. I corrected the information you gave her. She was offering a free assessment. I didn't request one. You don't request a smoke alarm inspection either. That doesn't make it an attack. She came to measure my home for a shared living arrangement. I asked her to look at possibilities. I already refused the possibility. You refused during lunch when you were irritated. I was calm. You were defensive. I said no. She gave a short laugh. See, this is what worries me. You get fixed on one version of a conversation, and nothing anyone says can move you. I looked at Dana's card on the table. One version? You heard a hypothetical and reacted like we had a moving truck outside. Did you tell Dana I might not remember the discussion? I said there was confusion. She used the word remember. I can't control her vocabulary. Did you say it? Melissa didn't answer. That was an answer. I said, do not schedule anyone else to come to my house. You're making ordinary planning sound sinister. It stops now. You're not the only person affected by your decisions. It's my house, and Todd is your son. Both things are true. She hung up. I wrote down the time, Dana's name, and what she had told me. I placed her card with the page. Then I called the number on the card. Dana answered. "This is Charles Holt. You were just at my house." "Yes, Mr. Holt. I want to confirm something while it's fresh. Did Melissa tell you I had memory trouble?" Dana took a breath. "She said you had forgotten a family conversation. Those were her words?" "Yes." "Did she ask you to evaluate me?" "No, we don't do that." "Did she ask you to report anything about my behavior?" "She asked me to let her know whether you seemed open to the transition, and what will you tell her, that you declined the assessment and denied agreeing to a shared arrangement." "Thank you." Before she ended the call, she said, "Mr. Holt, I'm going to close the intake. Nobody from our service will return unless you contact us yourself." That was the first clean result I'd had in days. One direct call had closed the visit and preserved the truth of what happened. The result came with a cost. A stranger now knew my daughter-in-law had described me as forgetful. I didn't know who else had heard the same description. At 4, I drove back to the office. Todd was there alone, loading fittings into plastic bins. He didn't seem surprised to see me. He said, "Melissa went to the bank." "I'm not here for her." He kept sorting fittings. I put Dana's card on his desk. She said, "Your wife told her I forgot a family conversation." Todd stared at the card. "Melissa shouldn't have said that." "No. She gets ahead of herself. You've used that phrase before." He dropped a brass coupling into the wrong bin, noticed, and moved it. "I'll talk to her. You've said that before, too." He rested both hands on the desk. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to stop acting like you're standing between two unreasonable people. One person asked to use my house. I said no. That should have ended it." Todd nodded. "Okay, say it." He looked at me. "What?" "Say what happened." He swallowed. "Melissa asked about moving in, and you said no. Was I confused?" "No." "Did I forget the conversation?" "No." That was another piece of truth recovered. Todd knew exactly what had happened. His problem wasn't memory. It was courage. I picked up Dana's card. As I turned away, Todd said, "Wait." He opened a drawer and removed a rolled set of plans. "I was going to call you tonight. What job is that?" "Laundromat renovation, over near Kiwi Street." I unrolled the plans on his desk. The work included new supply lines, drains, venting, and connections for commercial machines. "That job isn't on the list you sent." "I know." "Why not?" "Melissa said it was still being priced." "When does work start?" He tapped a note in the corner. "Tomorrow morning." I looked at him. "You sent me a list of active jobs at noon." She had already ordered material. "Did she prepare the estimate?" "Yes." "Have you seen it?" "Parts of it." "Have I?" "No." "So the first list you sent was incomplete." "I didn't know this was starting tomorrow until after I emailed you." "But Melissa knew." He looked toward the front window. "She's trying to keep the schedule moving." "Without showing me work attached to my license?" "It's one job. It's the first one I caught." Todd's face tightened. "Caught? What word would you use?" He didn't answer. I took the plans to the conference table. Todd brought me the estimate from Melissa's desk. The labor allowance was short. The venting plan depended on opening a wall the customer wanted closed again by Friday. I pointed to the schedule. "If they open this tomorrow, I inspect before it closes. I'll make sure. No photographs after the fact. I'll be there." "All right. And send me a corrected job list tonight." He nodded. At 7:12, the new list arrived. It had 7 jobs. I printed it, added the laundromat inspection to my calendar, and noticed something else. The email had come from Todd, but the file information showed Melissa had created the list before noon. She hadn't forgotten the laundromat. She had removed it. I was at the laundromat before 7 the next morning. The front doors were propped open with paint cans. 2 installers carried lengths of pipe through the doorway, while Todd stood beside a row of disconnected washing machines. He saw me and checked his watch. "You're early. You told me work started at 7. Melissa moved the inspection to 2. She doesn't set my inspection time." He looked toward the crew. "We're trying to get the rough work done first. I need to see it before you close anything." "You will." I unrolled the plans on a folding table. The existing drain ran beneath a raised platform behind the machines. The new plan called for a larger branch line and proper vent connections before tying into the building drain. I asked Todd, "Did you expose the existing connection?" "Not yet." Do that first. We were going to set the supply lines. The drain decides the elevation. He nodded toward one of the installers. Open the platform. Melissa arrived while they removed the plywood panels. She carried coffee for Todd and herself. She looked at me. I thought we agreed on 2. You did. I didn't. We scheduled around that. The crew was already working. That's why we moved your inspection. I pointed to the open platform. If they install above this before checking below it, they may have to remove everything. She handed Todd his coffee. You always assume something will go wrong. I assume we should look. The existing branch was smaller than the plans showed. It also ran nearly level for several feet before dropping into the main line. Todd crouched beside me. That's not 3-inch. No, the owner said it was. The owner sells laundry service. He doesn't inspect drain pipe. Melissa stayed behind us. Can we tie in farther down? Maybe, Todd said. I used a flashlight to follow the line. There's another fitting near the wall. We need that section exposed, Melissa said. How much time? An hour if the platform comes up clean. We don't have an hour? I looked back at her. Then you don't have time to do the job. She walked away without answering. The second fitting was worse. An old reducer had been buried beneath the platform. The branch couldn't handle the discharge from the new machines as planned. Todd looked at the estimate on his tablet. We didn't carry enough labor for this. I told you that. Can we make the existing line work? Not with all the machines. Melissa returned. What's the solution? I explained it. She said, that's a change order, if the customer accepts one. And if he doesn't, then you don't connect 6 machines to that branch. She looked at Todd. Call him. The customer came down 20 minutes later. He wasn't happy, but Todd showed him the exposed pipe. I explained the problem without blaming anyone. The customer agreed to pay for materials. Holt Plumbing would absorb part of the additional labor because the original estimate should have included verification. After he left, Melissa said, you didn't need to volunteer that. It was true. We could have billed the whole change. You priced work without checking the existing connection. We priced from the information provided, and now you have better information. She walked to her car and slammed the door. The crew worked through the morning. I stayed until the new branch was laid out and the vent route was visible. At 11:30, I told Todd, call me before this section closes. He nodded. I will. I drove home, ate a sandwich, and reviewed photographs from another job. At 1:45, Todd sent me 6 pictures. The first showed the new drain, the second showed pipe supports. The remaining 4 showed the plywood platform already back in place. His message said, can you approve rough and final from these? I called him. You closed it. The customer's flooring guys showed up. I told you to call. I sent pictures. After it was closed, you can see the pipe. I can see part of it. What can't you see? The last vent connection, the support near the wall, the test. We tested it. With what? Water. How much water? He didn't answer immediately. I said, did you test simultaneous discharge? The machines aren't connected yet. Then you didn't test the system it's supposed to serve. Dad, I need the approval. Open the access panel. There isn't one. Then remove the plywood. He lowered his voice. Melissa is right here. That doesn't change the pipe. She says the photos are enough. She isn't approving the work. I heard him move away. Can you come back and look at what's visible? I can come back. You still need to open it. He sighed. The flooring guy already started. That was your choice. You know what this will cost. I know what you agreed to this morning. He was silent. Then he said, let me talk to her. He ended the call. At 2:15, Melissa called. We need you to be practical. I am. The installation matches the plan you reviewed. The existing conditions didn't match the plan. You saw the correction. I saw the beginning of it. Todd says it's fine. Then why do you need my approval? She stopped for a second. Because that's your role. My role is to inspect, not repeat what Todd says. The county bid is due tomorrow. We cannot spend the afternoon taking apart finished work because you want another photograph. It isn't about a photograph. You've been hostile since I mentioned the house. I refused the house before I saw this job. So, this is punishment. No, it feels like it. Open the platform and call me. She hung up. Nobody called. At 5:30, Todd texted that the customer wouldn't allow the flooring to be disturbed. He asked if I could note a conditional approval. I replied that I could not approve work I hadn't inspected. That evening, rain tapped against the workshop roof. I sat at my desk and completed the inspection note. I wrote that the work was concealed before inspection. I listed the missing views and the incomplete test. I emailed a copy to Todd and Melissa. Todd responded with one word, received. Melissa didn't respond. The following afternoon, Holt Plumbing submitted its sealed county bid. I knew because Todd called from the office parking lot. It's in. How did the number look? Close. Close to what? What Melissa wanted. That wasn't my question. He laughed without much humor. We'll know when they open bids. Did you correct the labor assumptions for the county work? Yes. We added contingency. How much? I don't have it in front of me. He was standing outside the building where the folder had just been delivered, but he didn't have the number in front of him. I let that pass. Did you reopen the laundromat platform? No. Then I haven't approved it. I know. When are the machines being connected? Monday. Call me before testing. I will. Monday morning came without a call. At 10:20, the laundromat owner called me directly. Todd had given him my number during the change order discussion. He said, "Charles, we've got water coming up." "Where?" "Floor drain near the back wall." "How many machines were running?" 4, maybe 5. "Shut them down." "I already did." "Is Todd there?" "He left about 20 minutes ago." I grabbed my tool bag and drove over. Gray water sat in a shallow pool behind the machines. One of the installers had returned and was using a wet vacuum near the floor drain. I asked, "Where's Todd?" The installer said, "On his way." I removed the nearest access panel on the machine base. It gave me a narrow view of the new branch, but not the concealed connection. The pipe was full. Todd arrived 10 minutes later. He looked at the water and said, "It tested fine." "With how many machines?" 2. I asked for simultaneous discharge. We didn't have all 6 ready. Then, why did the customer start using them? Soft opening. The owner came over. "I've got people waiting." Todd said, "We'll clear it." I told him, "Clearing it won't correct the capacity." The owner looked between us. "You said the new line could handle this." Todd's face tightened. I said, "The visible section can. We need to inspect the concealed connection." Todd knew what that meant. He said, "We'll have to open the platform?" The owner pointed toward the finished floor. "You told me that part was done." Todd didn't answer. I knelt beside the floor drain and listened while one machine emptied. The water rose again. We shut everything down. The flooring contractor returned that afternoon. He removed a finished section while the laundromat owner watched. Beneath it, the new branch had been tied into the old line before the second restriction, not beyond it as the correction required. The vent connection I had asked to see was also wrong. It ran flat for too long and held water. Todd stared into the opening. I said, "Who made this connection?" He gave me the installer's name. "Who checked it?" "I did. Before it was covered." He didn't answer. Melissa arrived carrying the estimate and the job folder. She looked into the opening, then at me. "How long to fix it?" Todd said. 2 days. It cannot take 2 days. We have to reroute the tie-in. "What about the county questions? They're not due yet. I need both of you at the office." I said, "I'm staying here until the correction is exposed and planned." She turned on me. "This is exactly what I meant." "What?" "You create a standard nobody can meet, then you step in when they fail." I pointed into the platform. The drain backed up. "Because the crew rushed. You set the schedule. The customer set the schedule. You wrote the estimate. And you reviewed the plans. Not the estimate." Her face flushed. "You're sabotaging us right before the biggest opportunity we've ever had." The laundromat owner was standing close enough to hear. So were the installer and the flooring contractor. I kept my voice low. "I told you the inspection requirements. You concealed the work anyway. Now we correct it." Todd said, "Dad's right." Melissa turned toward him. He didn't look away this time. "I closed it before he approved it," Todd said. "That was my call." For the first time, Todd owned one choice in front of her. It didn't repair anything, but it stopped the argument. The company paid to reopen the platform, reroute the connection, repair the vent, replace the damaged flooring, and compensate the owner for the interrupted opening. Melissa told me the total was just over $9,000. I inspected the corrected work before it closed. We ran all 6 machines together. The branch drained cleanly. The floor drain stayed dry. The laundromat owner signed the completion sheet. That was the practical win. My refusal had forced the defect into view before I attached my approval to it. The obligation was harder. I could no longer tell myself that Todd and Melissa simply communicated badly. They were willing to conceal work, ask for approval afterward, and use my relationship with Todd to pressure me. The next morning, I locked the workshop door and opened Lori's address book. I logged into my PVL using the credentials from my desk. My individual license showed active. Holt Plumbing's entity record showed active too, with my name listed as its responsible managing employee. I already knew I could end that relationship. What I didn't know was how quickly the company would have to respond. I read the board's general instructions, then called the licensing office to confirm I understood them. The person who answered didn't ask about my family. She explained the ordinary rule. If an RME disassociated, the company had to notify the board within 60 days. It had 90 days to qualify a replacement or choose inactive status. Without a qualified replacement, the active entity license could not continue. I wrote the 2 deadlines on a yellow note: 60 days to notify, 90 days to replace me or go inactive. Then I asked one more question. What happens to a public bid if the company no longer has an active license when eligibility is checked? She said that depended on the solicitation, but the company would have to meet whatever license requirement the county checked at the required time. I thanked her and ended the call. The answer didn't make the decision for me. It only removed my excuse for pretending there was no decision. I folded the yellow note and put it behind my pocket card. I didn't file anything. The next day, I asked Todd to meet me at the workshop before work. I made coffee and left the door open so he wouldn't think I was setting a trap. He arrived at 7:10. "I've got a service call at 8, he said. "This won't take long if you answer directly." He sat on the stool beside my bench. I stayed standing. "What's your plan for qualifying the company without me?" His eyebrows rose. "Are you leaving?" I asked about your plan. "You are leaving. I haven't said that." "Then why are we talking about it?" "Because Holt Plumbing has one person holding the qualification. I'm 69. Even if we were getting along perfectly, that's poor planning." He looked down into his coffee. "I was going to work on my license." "When?" "When things settle." "What has to settle?" "The county bid, cash flow, staffing. Those things don't settle. They change names." He rubbed the side of the cup with his thumb. "I don't have time to study right now. You've had 4 years. I've been running the company. I know." His expression hardened. "You make it sound like I've done nothing. I'm saying you built a company that still depends on my qualification. That was the arrangement. It was never meant to be permanent. You never said that." He was right. I had never given him an end date. Every year I renewed my license, reviewed the company work, and accepted the stipend. Whenever Todd thanked me, I said, "That's what fathers do." I had turned a temporary favor into an open-ended promise without meaning to. I sat across from him. "You're right. I should have said it sooner." His face softened slightly. "So, what are you saying now?" "I'm saying you need a replacement plan. How soon? Bring me a real answer by Friday." "This Friday?" "Yes." "What counts as a real answer? A date for your application or the name of someone qualified you intend to approach?" He leaned back. "Melissa's going to think you're threatening the bid. I'm asking you to protect the company right before the bid opening. There will never be a comfortable time." He stood and walked toward the workshop door. Then he stopped. "We put everything into this county job. What does everything mean?" He kept his back to me. "Melissa moved our emergency savings into the company account." "When?" "After the laundromat problem. Did you agree?" "We needed to cover the repair and keep payroll clean." "That isn't what I asked." He turned around. I knew she was doing it. "How much of your household cushion is left?" "Not much." I waited. He added, "That's why she keeps talking about housing." There it was. Not the entire answer, but enough. Melissa wasn't looking at my house because it had empty bedrooms. She was looking at it because she had moved their safety money into Holt Plumbing, and free housing would make that choice easier to survive. I said, "Your finances don't create consent." "I know." "Does she?" Todd picked up his coffee. "She thinks families adjust, only after they agree." "I have to go." Friday. He nodded once and left. That conversation produced something useful. I understood the pressure behind Melissa's planning. It also made the situation worse. If I withdrew from the company, I wouldn't only be ending a business arrangement. I would be acting after Todd and Melissa had put their household savings at risk. They had made that decision without me, but I knew they would say I caused the damage that followed. The county opened the bids 3 days later at the Alpuni Center. The procurement room had rows of gray chairs, bright ceiling lights, and an air conditioner set colder than necessary. Contractors sat with folders on their laps. A few nodded to me. I'd worked around most of them at one time or another. Todd saved me a seat. Melissa sat on his other side with the Blue County folder against her knees. She leaned across him. I didn't know you were coming. I wanted to hear the numbers. You could have waited for us to call. I was available. Todd looked straight ahead. The procurement officer stood at the front table and explained the process. The bids would be read aloud. The lowest number would not become an award that day. Staff still had to review the forms, confirm the required qualifications, and prepare a recommendation for a later public meeting. She said, license status will be verified as part of the responsiveness review and again before award. I wrote that sentence on the back of the agenda, Melissa noticed. What are you writing? She whispered. What she said. I heard her. So did I. She shifted the blue folder to her other knee. The first bid was higher than I expected. The second was closer. Holt Plumbing's bid came third, $680,000. I felt Todd hold his breath beside me. The final bid was read. It was higher by a little over $20,000. Melissa gripped Todd's arm. We're low, she whispered. Todd smiled, but the smile looked frightened. The procurement officer repeated that the numbers were preliminary. The recommendation meeting was expected in several months. She gave a date and reminded everyone that all bidders had to remain eligible through the required checks. People stood and began gathering their papers. Melissa hugged Todd. We did it, Todd said. We're apparent low. We're low, pending review. She turned to me. You heard the numbers. I did. Aren't you going to say congratulations? You submitted the lowest number. Her smile faded. That's what winning a bid means, not according to the woman who just explained it. You always have to qualify everything. Today, qualification is the point. Todd heard the word differently. He looked at me. Dad, I said, you have until Friday to bring me a replacement plan. That hasn't changed. Melissa's head turned toward him. What is he talking about? Todd closed his eyes for a second. We talked about me getting my own qualification. When? This morning. Why wasn't I there? Because I asked to speak with him, I said. She stepped closer. Are you planning to pull your license? My license stays with me. You know what I mean? I haven't filed any change. Her eyes searched my face. But you checked. I confirmed the rules. Todd said, Can we not do this here? Melissa lowered her voice. You waited until after we put in the bid to threaten us. I'm not threatening you. You gave him a deadline. To make a plan. We have a plan. You're the RME, for now. Her face went pale beneath the fluorescent lights. A contractor passed behind us. Melissa waited until he was out of hearing. Then she said, You're upset about the house, so you're taking it out on the company. No. First the laundromat, now this. The laundromat proved why supervision matters. The laundromat cost us $9,000 because you refused to be flexible. It cost you money because the work was wrong. Todd said, Melissa, stop. She looked at him as if he had changed sides. I picked up my agenda. I want a copy of the license requirements in the county solicitation. Melissa held the blue folder tighter. You don't need the full bid. I asked for the requirements tied to my qualification. I'll send you what's relevant. I'll decide what's relevant. The pricing is confidential. I didn't ask for your pricing. Todd said, I'll make a copy. Melissa turned to him. We don't hand out sealed bid documents. The bid has been opened, he said, and he's listed as our RME. She stared at him. Then she took the blue folder under one arm and walked out. Todd watched her leave. I'll get you the pages. When? Today. Send them from your account. He looked at me. Why does that matter? Because I asked you. He nodded. We left the building separately. At 3:16, an email arrived from Todd with 12 scanned pages. I printed them in the workshop. The first pages described the project. The rest covered bidder qualifications, license requirements, evaluation, and the public recommendation process. Holt Plumbing had listed its active entity license correctly. It had listed me as the current RME. There was no false statement that I had promised to remain forever. The bid simply depended on the company staying qualified when the county checked. One paragraph mattered more than the rest. The apparent low bidder had to maintain an active license in the required classification through award. The county could verify status before making its recommendation. If the entity license became inactive or forfeited, the bid could be rejected as non-responsive. The language was simple enough. The company had time. The recommendation meeting was months away. So did I. I put the county pages beside the yellow note and called Todd. "Thank you for sending them. You found what you needed?" "Yes." "Are you going to tell me what that is?" I needed to know whether the county checks only at submission and they check again before award. He was quiet. "I told Melissa you weren't quitting. I haven't filed anything." "That isn't the same answer." "No," he exhaled. "What do you want me to do, Dad?" "Bring me a replacement plan tomorrow. I've made calls." "To whom?" "People I know. Anyone qualified?" "Not yet." "Then keep calling." He lowered his voice. "If we win this, I can fix everything. The contract won't earn you a license. It'll give me breathing room. You're planning to start a $680,000 job while your company depends on a relationship that's already failing. I don't want the relationship to fail." "Which relationship?" He didn't answer. That was the wider problem. Todd still spoke as if the company and the family were the same thing. Any boundary around one became an injury to the other. After the call, I went inside and made dinner. At 6:30, a truck door closed in my driveway. Todd came through the kitchen door carrying 2 paper grocery bags. I looked at the bags. "What's this?" "Food. I can see that." He set them on the counter. There was chicken, rice, coffee, fruit, and a loaf of bread. "Melissa thought you might need groceries. I bought groceries yesterday." He glanced toward the refrigerator. "She said you've been forgetting meals." "Based on what?" "I don't know. Did she send you here to check?" "No." "Then why are you here?" He took a package of coffee from one bag. "You always drink this?" That isn't an answer. His shoulders dropped. "She asked me to bring the food. I agreed because I wanted to talk." "About your replacement plan?" "About all of it." I waited. He looked toward the hallway. "Would living together really be that bad?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, as if he had expected the answer, but hoped I'd changed it. "We could help with expenses." "I don't need help with expenses." "You wouldn't be alone." "I'm alone now. I'm not incapable." "I didn't say incapable. Your wife is telling strangers I forget things. Now she's telling you I forget to eat." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I'll tell her to stop." "You told me that before." "I mean it." "Then do it while I can hear you." He took out his phone. For a moment, I thought he would call. Instead, he put the phone back in his pocket. "Not like this." I pushed the grocery bags toward him. "Take these home. Dad, they're yours." He left the bags on the counter and walked out. I carried them to his truck and placed them in the bed before he backed away. The following morning was Friday. At 9, Todd emailed me a document titled RME Succession Plan. It contained 3 sentences. He would begin studying after the county award. He would seek another qualified person if necessary. Charles Holt would remain RME during the transition. There was no application date. There was no replacement. There was no transition period. My deliberate request had worked in one sense. It forced Todd to put his plan into words. The words confirmed he had no plan beyond my surrender. At 11, Melissa emailed me the old acknowledgement form again. She had added a signature line and highlighted it. Her message said the county review required stability and asked me to return it that afternoon. I replied that I would not sign it. At 1:14, Nathan sent me a text. "Can I stop by Thursday? Mom wants me to check something at your house." I asked what he needed to check. He replied that she hadn't explained it. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I told him he could come by after lunch. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the floor. I said, "Tell me exactly what your mother told you." He rubbed both hands along his jeans. "She said they talked to you about moving in after the county bid. She said you agreed, but lately you've been forgetting conversations. Anything else? She said you might get embarrassed if I brought it up. That was convenient." "Grandpa, I'm not saying I believe her now. I'm telling you what she said. I know." He looked around the room. She asked me to measure the wall and the doorway. She wanted to know if their dresser would fit, without asking me. I thought she had. I nodded toward the sewing table. "Your mother sat at my kitchen table last week. She said they could save money by living here. She called it hypothetical. I said no. Nathan listened without interrupting. Your father walked in before she left, I continued. I told him what she asked. I told him my answer. Did she bring it up again later? Several times. My answer didn't change. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling Dad. Put it on speaker. Todd answered after 2 rings. Hey, Nate, Nathan said. I'm at Grandpa's. A pause followed. Okay. Mom sent me to measure the guest room. Todd didn't respond. Nathan looked at me. I said, Todd, did you tell Nathan I agreed to let you move into my house? No. Did Melissa? I don't know what she told him. Nathan said, she said, Grandpa agreed and forgot. Todd let out a slow breath. Can we talk about this later? No, I said. Dad, I'm working. Then take 5 minutes. It's not that simple. It is. Did I ever agree? Todd said nothing. Nathan leaned toward the phone. Dad? I heard him. Then answer. Todd lowered his voice. Your grandfather and your mother had a conversation. I know that, Nathan said. What did he say? He said he didn't want anyone moving in. The room went quiet. Nathan stared at the phone. I said, Did I change my mind later? No. Did I forget an agreement? No. Nathan stood. Why did Mom tell me he did? I can't answer for her. You knew she booked a truck. That was new to me. Todd said, Nathan? You knew, Nathan repeated. I knew she was looking at dates. She already paid a deposit. I watched Nathan's face. When did she book it? I asked. He answered me, not his father. 2 days ago. Todd said, Nobody's moving today. That isn't the point, Nathan told him. Your mother thinks Grandpa will be better off with us here. She told me he asked you. Todd didn't answer. I said, Bring Melissa to my house, Dad. Now. I have calls scheduled. You've scheduled more than calls. He was quiet for several seconds. We'll come after work. No. The truck is booked for Saturday. You can come now, Todd said. Give me half an hour. He ended the call. Nathan put his phone in his pocket. I shouldn't have come in here without asking. You believed you had permission. I should have asked you anyway. Yes. He accepted that, without defending himself. I appreciated it more than an apology. We went to the kitchen. I made fresh coffee. Nathan sat at the table while I stood near the sink. He said, Mom's been talking about you forgetting things for weeks. To whom? Me, Dad. I don't know who else. What examples did she give? The groceries, the mail, that home assessment lady. She created all 3. His mouth tightened. She said you asked for help, then got angry when she helped. I didn't. I believe you. Believe what you can confirm. He nodded. 28 minutes later, Melissa's car pulled into the driveway. Todd arrived behind her in a company truck. Melissa entered first. She looked at Nathan. You called your father away from a job? Nathan said, You lied to me. About what? You said Grandpa agreed. I said there had been an agreement. There wasn't. She put her purse on the counter. This is a family discussion. It shouldn't be happening like an interrogation. I said, Who booked the truck? I did. Cancel it. The deposit is non-refundable. That's your cost. You knew we were considering this. I refused. You refused the way you refuse anything that makes you uncomfortable. Then you calmed down. Todd stood by the door. He didn't take a chair. I looked at him. Tell her what you just told us. Melissa turned toward him. What did you tell them? Todd stared at the kitchen floor. I said Dad never agreed. Her face went still. You weren't there for every conversation. I was there when he said no. That was one conversation. Was there another one? I asked. Melissa looked at me. You know how many times we've discussed your situation. My situation isn't consent. You're living alone in a house you can't maintain forever. I maintain it now. You forgot the licensing letter. You took it. You leave your mail sitting unopened for one afternoon. You aren't eating properly. I sent your groceries back because I had food. You become suspicious of everyone. Nathan said, Mom, stop. She turned on him. You don't understand what's involved. I understand you sent me here because you thought he wouldn't challenge me. I sent you because he trusts you. That makes it worse. She picked up her purse again. This whole family is depending on that county contract. Your grandfather could make things easier, and he's choosing not to. I said, my home isn't part of Holt Plumbing. It could reduce pressure on all of us. On you. On Todd. On the company. Eventually on you, Todd said. Melissa? She looked at him. What? You told me the mortgage is draining us. You moved the savings. We agreed to that. You said it was temporary. It is temporary if we stop paying for 2 houses. I held up one hand. There has never been a plan to stop paying for 2 houses. Melissa laughed once. You act like we're strangers asking for your spare room. Your family asking after I said no. Family makes sacrifices. I already made mine. Her eyes shifted toward the workshop window. You receive a stipend for licensed supervision. You've had steady income for doing almost nothing. Todd looked at her. That's not true. He reviews paperwork and shows up when he feels like it. He saved the laundromat job. He caused the redo. The pipe was wrong. She pressed her lips together. Nathan stood. I'm not helping you move. Melissa blinked. You said you would. I said I'd help because you told me Grandpa agreed. He needs us here. He just told you he doesn't. He doesn't understand how exposed he is. I said, exposed to what? She didn't answer directly. An emergency. A fall. A bad decision. Like letting someone use my license without supervision? Todd flinched. Melissa pointed toward me. This is what he does now. He changes the subject, circles back, and turns everything into an accusation. No, Nathan said. He answers the question. Todd finally moved away from the door. Cancel the truck, Melissa. She stared at him. We'll lose the deposit. Cancel it. And where are we supposed to go if the company needs the mortgage money? We'll figure it out. That isn't a plan. Neither is moving into Dad's house without permission. She picked up her purse. I'm leaving, I said. Take the truck reservation with you. She walked out. Todd remained in the kitchen. Nathan wouldn't look at him. Todd said, Nate, I'm sorry you got pulled into this. Nathan gave a short shake of his head. You didn't get pulled in? Todd looked tired. I should have stopped it. Yes, I said. He nodded. I know. It was the admission I had spent weeks trying to get. It didn't give me what I thought it would. I had believed that if Todd said the truth aloud, the pressure would break. Instead, he had waited until his own son forced him to choose between 2 versions of the same conversation. My son knew I had refused. He let Melissa schedule the consultant, repeat the story about my memory, book the truck, and send Nathan into my room. Truth had not been missing. Todd had been avoiding its cost. I said, You both need to leave. Dad, I canceled the move. You told her to cancel it after Nathan refused to help. I still said it. Go back to work. He looked as if he wanted to say more. Then he picked up his keys and left. Nathan stayed. We sat at the kitchen table without speaking. After a while, he said, Do you want me to move the sewing table back? It didn't move. I mean against the wall. It's where your grandmother left it. He looked toward the hallway. I didn't touch it. I know. He stayed another 20 minutes. We didn't discuss the company. Before leaving, he placed the tape measure on the counter. I don't want this in my pocket. I watched him drive away. The house became very quiet. At 6:15, Todd called. I almost ignored it. Then I remembered my name was still attached to every license job Holt Plumbing performed. I answered. He said, We have a leak at the restaurant remodel. Where? Inside the wall behind the prep sink. Did the crew shut the water? Yes. What failed? We don't know yet. I'll meet you there. The restaurant was closed for remodeling. Todd waited at the rear entrance with a flashlight. Neither of us mentioned the kitchen conversation. We opened the wall and found a fitting that hadn't been seated fully. Water had soaked the insulation and part of the drywall. Todd removed the bad section while I prepared the replacement. We worked beside each other for nearly 2 hours. At one point he said, I wasn't trying to take your house. I kept the flashlight on the pipe. You stood aside while someone else tried. I thought she'd let it go. She booked a truck. I didn't know she told Nathan you agreed. You knew I hadn't. He tightened the fitting. I'm sorry. Turn the water on slowly. We tested the repair, dried the floor, and left a note for the crew. In the parking lot, Todd said, Are you coming to the office tomorrow? No. We need to discuss the county review. You need to handle your company. You're still part of it, for the moment. He stared at me. What does that mean? It means go home, Todd. I drove back to my workshop. My shoulders hurt from holding the flashlight and working inside the wall. I sat at the desk and looked at the yellow note. For weeks I had been trying to preserve 2 things at once. I wanted my house respected, and I wanted Holt Plumbing to continue depending on me. I thought I could draw a clean line between them. Todd and Melissa had already erased that line. My usefulness had become their answer to every objection. My license supported the company. The stipend made my concern look selfish. Their financial risk became a claim on my house. Even Todd's calls kept me attached because I still wanted to hear his voice. Getting them to appreciate me was no longer enough. Getting Todd to make a replacement plan was no longer enough. The dependency itself had to end. I took a clean sheet from the printer and began writing the notice in plain language. I wrote my license information, Holt Plumbing's entity name, and my intent to disassociate as its responsible managing employee. When I reached the effective date, I stopped. Then I checked the calendar and chose Monday. I signed it beneath the date. The form itself was simple: my name, my license number, the company's entity name, and the effective date of my disassociation. I read it twice. Then I placed it in the center drawer for the weekend. Sunday afternoon, I went through my company records. I completed notes for every open job I had inspected. I listed what was finished, what still required checking, and which questions remained with Todd. I didn't write accusations. I wrote conditions, measurements, dates, and names. The laundromat file was the longest. After that, I made a list of my personal tools at the company office. Over 4 years, Todd had borrowed pipe cutters, test gauges, hand tools, and a red-handled pipe wrench I'd owned since before Holt Plumbing existed. Some items traveled between trucks. Others stayed in the office storage room. I wasn't planning to walk into the company and empty a truck during active jobs. I wanted the list ready. Monday morning, I unlocked the workshop at 8. I scanned the sign notice and uploaded it through the board's electronic system. The screen asked me to confirm that the information was accurate. I clicked the box, then I clicked Submit. A confirmation page appeared with the filing date and a reference number. I printed 2 copies. One went with the company records. The other went into the locked center drawer beside my pocket card. The electronic record held the original filing. Nobody from the board called Todd. Nobody stood beside me. The system accepted what I submitted because the RME relationship was mine to end. I closed the laptop. Then I opened the cabinet beneath the workbench and took out the bottle of bourbon Lori had given me on our last anniversary. I poured 1 quiet glass. I sat on the stool and drank it slowly while rain struck the metal roof. There was no toast and no feeling of victory. I had ended a professional arrangement with my own son. When the glass was empty, I washed it and returned it to the cabinet. At 10, Todd called. He didn't know yet. I need you at the office around noon. For what? County follow-up questions. Send them to me. Melissa wants everybody in the room. I'm not discussing the bid without seeing the questions. He sighed. They're routine. Staffing, scheduling, license confirmation. Send them. Dad, can you work with me? That's what I've been doing. He ended the call without agreeing. At 10:20, the questions arrived by email. The county wanted clarification about crew availability, subcontractor coordination, and the company's plan for maintaining required licensing through the contract. I read the last question carefully. Holt Plumbing could answer truthfully that its entity license was active that day. It could not promise I would remain its RME. I replied to Todd alone. I wrote that he should answer the staffing and scheduling questions as the company owner. For the licensing question, he should state the current public record and avoid making any commitment in my name. He called immediately. What does that mean? It means don't promise that I'll remain. Why would I promise in your name? The acknowledgement form did. We didn't submit that. Good. Are you planning something? I've made my position clear. No, you keep saying things around the position. I looked at the printed confirmation beside my laptop. The public record will answer your question. What public record? You should monitor the company license. He went quiet. Did you file something? I didn't answer. Dad, you'll receive the proper notice. He hung up. That was as close as I came to warning him after the filing. I didn't owe Melissa another argument before the board processed an action she couldn't veto. By Tuesday afternoon, the filing appeared in the electronic record. At 3:06, my phone rang. Melissa didn't say hello. You disassociated. Yes. You filed yesterday? Yes. You told Todd you hadn't filed anything. I told him that before I filed. You let us submit county answers without disclosing this. I told him not to make a commitment in my name. You knew exactly what the county was asking. So did you. Her voice rose. The board sent a notice to the company. They want a response. Then respond. We have to notify them and replace you. Yes. You planned this. I documented my departure. You did it in secret. You had no right to approve it first. We built this company around your license. That was your decision. It was our arrangement. The arrangement ended Monday. She breathed into the phone. You're going to destroy Todd. Todd has a replacement period. Nobody qualified will step into this on short notice. He had 4 years to prepare. This is because of the house. It's because you treated my license the way you treated my house. You're proving everything I've said. What have you said? That you're not making stable decisions. The notice is clear. It's vindictive. It is effective. She ended the call. 10 minutes later, I checked the portal again. My individual license remained active. Holt Plumbing's entity record now showed the RME change under review, with the company directed to address the qualification requirement. The filing had worked. My name was no longer an open promise they could extend without asking me. The board's record gave the company ordinary time to respond, but the decision itself wasn't theirs to reverse. That was the first visible success of the new strategy. It also placed a bright target on me. Todd arrived at the workshop before 4. He came in holding the printed board notice. You could have told me Monday. I told you to monitor the license. After you filed. Yes. He dropped the notice on the bench. Why give me until Friday to make a plan if you were going to leave anyway? I gave you Friday before Nathan came here. So Nathan changed your mind? You changed my mind. He stared at me. I admitted the truth. After a moving truck was booked, I canceled it. Melissa booked it because she expected me to give in. I didn't know she'd gone that far. You knew I said no. His shoulders fell. What do I do now? Notify the board within 60 days. Qualify a replacement within 90? Or choose inactive status. I know what the notice says. Then do it. You make it sound easy. I didn't say it was easy. Can you withdraw the filing? I'm not going to. What if we put the house issue in writing? No. What if Melissa apologizes to Nathan? This isn't a negotiation. The county contract could save us. Then find a qualified RME. I've called 5 people, and 2 aren't interested. 1 works for a competitor. The others haven't called back. What about your own application? I'm not ready. Then you know the problem. He looked around the workshop. His eyes stopped on Lori's name, scratched into the old pipe wrench. Mom would hate this. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, "Don't use your mother to ask for my license." His face tightened. That isn't what I meant. It's what you did. She wanted us close. She also expected people to ask directly. He picked up the board notice. Are you going to finish the open jobs? I prepared handoff notes for everything I inspected before Monday. I'll send them today. Will you inspect the restaurant repair? I inspected it Friday. My note is complete. What about new work? No. The company still has a response period. My RME service ended Monday. What if I need advice? Ask me as my son. Don't ask me to approve company work. He gave a tired laugh. How am I supposed to separate those? Start practicing. He left the notice on the bench and walked out. I emailed the handoff notes before dinner. I copied both Todd and Melissa so neither could claim the other had withheld them. Melissa replied that the notes were incomplete because they didn't cover jobs scheduled after Monday. I answered with one sentence. Those jobs began after my disassociation. She didn't respond. The next morning, Todd called about a residential repair. He said, "The crew found galvanized pipe behind the shower. What's the question? Whether to replace the whole branch. Is this advice, or are you asking for approval?" He paused. Advice. Then check the pressure and the condition at the nearest exposed joint. Tell the owner what you find. Don't promise a full replacement before you know. Okay. He waited. I said, "Anything else?" No. He called again an hour later. The joint crumbled when we opened it. Then you have your answer. We're replacing the branch. Good. Can I put your initials on the change note? No. Another pause. Right. Advice. He ended the call. That small exchange showed the boundary could work. I helped my son think through a problem without paying for the conversation with my license. The cost arrived that afternoon. Holt Plumbing stopped my monthly stipend. Melissa sent the payment notice herself. She wrote that because I had abandoned my duties without adequate transition, the company would withhold the current payment and review whether prior consulting payments had been justified. I replied with copies of my inspection notes and the original deposit memos marked RME Services. I didn't demand future money. I asked only for payment through the effective date. She wrote back that the company disputed the amount. It wasn't enough money to threaten my house. That wasn't why it hurt. For 4 years, I had accepted less than my work was worth because I believed the difference belonged to family. Now Melissa was using the smallness of the payment to suggest the work had been small too. I printed the exchange and placed it with the company records. At 6, Nathan called. "Grandpa, Mom asked me to write something." "What kind of thing?" "She wants me to describe times you forgot conversations." "What did you tell her?" I said, "I haven't seen that." "What did she say?" "She said the measuring situation proved you were confused." "You were there." "I know." I heard a door close on his end. He lowered his voice. "She wants a family meeting Sunday." "About what?" "Your decision-making, the company, the house." She said everything has to be discussed together. Those are 3 different subjects. That's what I told her. "Did your father ask for the meeting?" "He's going along with it." I looked through the workshop window toward the dark kitchen. "Where?" "Here, at their house." "Did she invite me?" "She said I should bring you." I said, "I can drive myself." Nathan was quiet. Then he said, "She doesn't want you arriving alone." I said, "I'll see you Sunday." "Do you want me to pick you up anyway?" "No." "Mom's going to make this ugly. She already has." Nathan was quiet. "I won't sign anything. Don't decide before you read it. I know what I remember. So do I." After we ended the call, I checked the company license record. My disassociation still appeared with Monday's filing date. Holt Plumbing's response period was listed beneath it. Nothing on the public page mentioned my memory. That changed Sunday. The meeting was scheduled for 4. I arrived at 3:58 in my own truck. Todd opened the door. "Where's Nathan?" "Coming separately. Melissa thought he was bringing you." "I know." He stepped aside. On the dining table were 4 chairs, a pitcher of water, and 2 folders. Melissa sat at the far end with a laptop open. I didn't sit immediately. "What are the folders?" "Information," she said. "About what?" "Your recent behavior." Todd pulled out a chair. "Dad, sit down. I'm comfortable." Melissa closed the laptop. "This is exactly why Nathan should have driven you. I arrived on time. That isn't the issue." "Then state the issue." She looked at Todd. He said, "We're concerned things have escalated too fast." "What things?" "The company, the filing, everything." Melissa pushed one folder toward the empty chair nearest me. I opened it. The first page was a copy of my disassociation notice. The next pages included her own timeline. She had listed the licensing reminder, the returned groceries, the home assessment, the laundromat disagreement, and my refusal to sign the county acknowledgement. Besides several entries, she had written memory concern or abrupt behavior. I turned another page. At the top, it said, "Petition for administrative review." The language beneath it asked the contractor's license board to delay final action on my disassociation, while Holt Plumbing challenged whether I had understood the consequences. I looked at Todd. "Did you file this?" Melissa answered. "The company did." I asked Todd. He rubbed his palms together. I knew she was preparing something. That wasn't my question. He looked at me. "Yes, it was submitted Friday. So this meeting is after the filing." "We wanted to talk before you responded," Melissa said. "You wanted Nathan to bring me here before telling me you challenged my competency. We didn't call you incompetent." I tapped the page. "You asked the board to review whether I understood my own filing. That is a narrow business question." "No, it isn't. It protects the company while the family resolves this." "There is no family vote on my license." She folded her hands. "Your decision affects employees, customers, Todd, and the county. The board deserves to know it may have been made under emotional strain. Emotional strain isn't incompetence. You've been making erratic choices. Name one. You accused me of stealing mail. You returned it in a grocery bag. You changed the workshop lock. After my key disappeared, you refused groceries. I had groceries. You canceled a home assessment. I never requested it. You withdrew from the company days after a family disagreement. I filed after 4 years of undocumented dependence and repeated pressure." Todd said, "Dad, slow down." I looked at him. "Am I speaking too fast for you?" "No." "Did I misunderstand the house conversation?" He glanced at Melissa. "No." "Then don't tell me to slow down because my answers are inconvenient." The front door opened. Nathan entered and stopped when he saw the folders. Melissa said, "You're late. By 2 minutes." He sat beside me. She turned the folder toward him. "We need you to read the family statement." Nathan read the first page. His forehead tightened. "What family statement?" "The one describing Charles's recent confusion." "He's Grandpa." "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." Melissa pointed to an attached page. "You told us he forgot the moving discussion." Nathan looked at her. "I told you he said there was no agreement. You initially believed there was, because you lied to me." Todd said, "Nate, no. She sent me into his house with a tape measure. Now she's using that as proof he's confused?" Melissa's voice became softer. "I didn't lie. I believed Charles had changed his mind and later forgotten." "Based on what?" "Based on several conversations." I said, "Name one conversation where I agreed." She ignored me. Nathan pushed the folder away. "I'm not signing this. Nobody's asking you to accuse him of anything. That's exactly what this says. It asks for a review, then leave my name out." Melissa's jaw tightened. "The board may want a witness. I witnessed the dad admit Grandpa said no." Todd looked down. Melissa said, "This isn't only about the house." Nathan stood. "It became about the company when Grandpa stopped doing what you wanted. That is unfair. You told me he forgot before he filed anything." The room went quiet. That one sentence stripped away her timing. She had described me as forgetful, while she still expected me to keep qualifying Holt Plumbing. My judgment became a problem only when it stopped serving her. Todd looked at Melissa. "He's right." She turned toward him. "Don't start." "You told Nathan that before Dad filed?" "I was concerned before he filed. But you still wanted his signature on the county acknowledgement. That was a business necessity." Todd leaned back. "You can't say he was too confused to refuse and clear enough to sign." Melissa's face changed. For a second, she had no answer. That was the useful result of the meeting. Her own timeline did not support her claim. Then she opened the second folder. I already addressed that. Inside was a copy of Holt Plumbing's response to the county's licensing question. The company had informed procurement that my disassociation was under administrative dispute. It said the filing arose during a family conflict and might not reflect a settled or competent decision. I read the paragraph twice. "You sent this to the county?" "We had to preserve the bid." "You told procurement I might not be competent." "We told them the filing was disputed." You used the word competent. It was necessary context. Todd said, "I told you not to phrase it that way. You approved the response. I approved sending an update. I didn't approve that sentence. You read it after it went out." "And did you correct it?" I asked. He didn't answer. "That was my cost." Until then, the damage had stayed inside the family and the company. Now a county procurement file carried a written suggestion that I couldn't understand my own professional decision. I had spent most of my working life in Hilo. Contractors knew my name, inspectors knew my work. Some of the people reviewing that bid had probably seen my license number on jobs for years. Melissa had attached doubt to it because doubt was her strongest remaining tool. I closed the folder. "Withdraw the statement." She shook her head. "Withdraw your disassociation." "No." "Then we have to maintain our position." "You don't maintain a false statement by repeating it. It isn't false. You made a destructive decision after a personal argument. I made a professional decision after repeated professional failures. The company can still recover if you rescind. I won't." She looked at Nathan. "You see, he won't even consider the consequences." "I see him answering you," Nathan said. Todd leaned forward. "Dad, what if we agree to a temporary arrangement? Stay through the county award. I'll work on my qualification during the contract. You said you'd start after the award. I'll start now. Have you filed an application?" "No." "Scheduled an exam?" "No." "Found a replacement?" "Not yet." "Then your new plan is the old plan with different words." He pressed both hands against his eyes. "If the bid falls apart, so does the company," Melissa said, "and possibly our house." I looked at her. "You chose to move your savings. We chose based on your commitment. My commitment was active supervision, not permanent qualification. You never gave us an end date. That was my mistake." Todd lowered his hands. "Will you give us the 90 days? The rule gives you 90 days. I mean, will you help us during them? I'll answer questions as your father. I won't act as RME. That distinction doesn't work in real life. It worked last Wednesday for one shower repair. It has to keep working." Melissa stood. This is pointless. No, I said. The point is clear now. She picked up the petition. If you continue, we continue. You already filed it, and we can add information. Only if it's true. Truth depends on perspective. No? Opinions do. She stared at me across the table. Nathan said, I'm leaving. He walked toward the front door. I followed. Todd caught up with me in the hallway. Dad, wait. I turned. He lowered his voice. If you force this deadline, I may lose everything I built. You're asking me to restore the dependency. I'm asking for time. You have the ordinary period. It isn't enough. It has to be. He looked toward the dining room. Do you want us to lose the house? No. Then help me. I have helped you for 4 years. That doesn't answer now. Yes, it does. I walked outside. Nathan waited beside his car. You okay to drive? He asked. Yes. I didn't mean it like Mom. I know. He nodded toward my truck. I'll follow you home. You don't have to. I know. He followed anyway. When I reached the workshop, an email from the licensing board was waiting. Holt Plumbing had disputed the disassociation and requested administrative review. The filing did not automatically restore me as RME, but the board wanted written confirmation that I had submitted the notice knowingly and intended it to remain effective. I had 10 days to respond. The county email had been copied into the company's petition. So had Melissa's timeline. I sat at my desk and read every page. Withdrawing would end the immediate attack. The company could keep using my qualification. Todd might keep his business. Melissa would claim the filing proved I needed supervision, then treat every future boundary as another episode. My professional name would be examined. Todd's company might fail. His mortgage could follow. Nathan would remain caught between his parents and me. I opened a clean response form. Under the question asking whether I wished to withdraw my disassociation, I checked no. Then I began answering the board's questions. I kept the answers narrow. I stated that I had prepared the notice myself. I had used my own MYPVL credentials. Nobody had pressured me. I understood that Holt Plumbing would have to qualify a replacement or become inactive. I attached the filing confirmation and a copy of my active individual license. I did not attach Melissa's emails, the home assessment card, or my notes about the moving truck. The board wasn't there to settle a family argument. It only needed to know whether I intended to disassociate. At the end, I wrote one sentence. My decision is voluntary, informed, and final. I signed the response and submitted it the next morning. 2 days later, a licensing employee called. She verified my full name, my license number, and the reference number on the filing. Then she asked, do you understand that your disassociation may affect the entity license held by Holt Plumbing? Yes. Do you wish to remain the company's RME during the review? No. Do you authorize the company to represent that you intend to return? No. Is there any question about the effective date? No. It was Monday. She paused while typing. The company's petition refers to concerns about your competency. I read it. Are you asking the board to consider any medical material? There is no medical material. Are you under a guardianship or other order affecting your license? No. All right. Her tone stayed ordinary. She wasn't deciding whether Melissa was cruel or whether Todd had failed me. She was checking the filing. I asked, can the company's petition put my name back as RME without my consent? No. An entity cannot compel an individual to serve as its qualifying employee. And the replacement period? The original effective date remains the start unless the board issues a different order. Based on this record, it remains Monday. That removed the uncertainty. The filing stood. Holt Plumbing had the general period to notify the board and qualify a replacement. The company could challenge the paperwork, but it couldn't challenge me back into the job. The written confirmation arrived that afternoon. I printed it and locked it in the workshop desk. Melissa called twice. I didn't answer. Her third call went to voicemail. You're refusing to participate in a good faith family process. We're going to make sure the county understands the review isn't finished. I saved the message. Then I went outside and cleaned the gutters. That sounds like avoidance. It wasn't. Rain had been spilling over the back corner for weeks, and I had kept postponing the repair for company calls. I set the ladder carefully, cleared the leaves, and reseated a loose bracket. Water from the hose ran through the downspout without spilling. When I climbed down, my phone showed a county email. The procurement office had received conflicting information about Holt Plumbing's license qualification. They asked me to confirm whether I remained its RME. I answered with the same restraint. I wrote that my disassociation had been filed voluntarily and became effective Monday. I did not represent Holt Plumbing after that date. I attached the board confirmation. Nothing else. I could have sent the laundromat file. I could have sent Melissa's demand that I approve concealed work. I could have described the false move agreement and the consultant she sent to my house. That would have damaged the company before the license deadline made any decision necessary. I didn't do it. The county had asked one question. I answered one question. The procurement officer replied that license status would be checked under the solicitation at the scheduled recommendation meeting. The county would rely on the official record at that time. There would be no private ruling and no special promise. The live check remained in place. Todd came to the workshop that evening. He looked up at the repaired gutter. "You did that yourself?" "Yes." "You could have called me. I know." He stood beneath the roof edge with his hands in his pockets. The board rejected the hold. They confirmed my filing. Same result. No. Words still matter. He looked toward the workshop. "Can we go inside?" We sat at the bench. He had brought a printed calendar. He marked the date the company notice had to be completed. Then he marked the 90th day after my departure. The county recommendation meeting fell 6 days after that. Todd tapped the second mark. "We need someone qualified before here." "Yes. The board won't extend it just because the county meeting is later." "I know." Melissa thought the petition would pause the clock. It didn't. He folded the calendar in half. "I talked to 2 more people. Qualified people? Yes. And one wants more money than we can pay. The other doesn't want responsibility for work already underway. What about your application?" He rubbed his jaw. "I bought the study material. That wasn't my question. I haven't applied." "Why?" "Because I can't be ready before the deadline." "You could have been ready by now, I know." "Then apply for your own future. Stop treating the county date as the only date that matters." His eyes lifted. "You really aren't coming back?" "No." "What if I get Melissa out of company management?" That surprised me. "Is that what you want?" "I'm asking whether it changes anything. It doesn't restore the RME relationship. So, there's nothing I can do. You can qualify yourself. You can hire someone. You can reduce work. You can choose inactive status. None of that saves the bid. No." He leaned forward. "Then, what do you want? Do you want to watch Holt Plumbing close?" "I want the company to stop, depending on something it can only keep by pressuring me." That sounds like yes. It isn't. If I lose the company, I lose 4 years. I gave it 4 years, too. You gave advice and signed notes. I built my life around it. That's the problem. He stood. "Maybe we don't have a relationship after this." I felt that in my chest, but I didn't move. "That's your decision. You can say that because you already made yours." "Yes." He took the folded calendar and left. For the next several weeks, Holt Plumbing continued operating during the replacement period. I stayed out of its jobs. Todd called me twice as my son. The first time, he asked about the gutter. The second time, he began with a question about a commercial valve. I stopped him. "Is this company work?" He said. "I don't know how to talk to you anymore. Start with something that doesn't need fixing." He ended the call. Nathan visited one Saturday afternoon. He brought no tools and asked for nothing. We drank coffee on the lanai while Rain moved across the yard. He told me Melissa was contacting qualified contractors through people she knew. Nobody had agreed. "Dad keeps saying you'll change your mind near the deadline," he said. "Does he?" "He thinks you won't let the company go inactive." "What do you think?" "I think he still expects you to save him." I looked toward the workshop. "Your father learned that expectation from me." Nathan shook his head. "He's still responsible for it." "Yes." We sat without speaking for a while. Before he left, he said, "Mom asked if I'd talk to the county. What did she want you to say?" "That the family dispute was being resolved. Is it?" "No." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I wasn't part of the bid." That was the first contact Nathan and I had shared without a task between us. It felt unfamiliar. It also felt clean. On the 58th day, Holt Plumbing submitted its required notice to the board. The portal updated 2 days later. The entity remained in its replacement period. The final date appeared in the public record. Melissa could no longer pretend the clock had paused. She emailed me that afternoon. Her message offered to withdraw the competency claim and correct the county statement if I signed a temporary RME agreement through the award meeting. I read the proposed agreement. It would have restored my name long enough to keep the bid eligible. It also gave Holt Plumbing the option to extend my service if the county delayed the award. I replied that I declined. She answered within a minute, "Then you are choosing the outcome." I didn't respond. A week later, a qualified contractor called me. Melissa had asked him to consider becoming Holt Plumbing's RME. He wanted to know whether I thought Todd was capable. I could have ended their search with one ugly conversation. Instead, I said, "Todd knows plumbing. He works hard. If you consider the role, review the company records yourself and set your own authority in writing." He asked, "Why did you leave?" "Because my authority wasn't respected. Would you recommend I take it?" "I won't make that decision for you." He thanked me and ended the call. He did not take the position. I didn't know whether the reason was my answer, the company records, or the amount Melissa offered. I didn't call him again. On the 76th day, Todd left a study book on my workshop bench. I found him standing near the door. "I applied," he said. "For the examination?" "Yes." "When?" "Next month." "That's after the deadline." "I know. It was late, but it was real." I opened the book. Several pages were marked. "I'm glad you applied." He looked at me as if he expected more. "That's it? What else?" "You could stay until I pass." "No?" His mouth tightened. "I did what you told me. You began doing it. What's the difference?" "Time and result." He took the book back. "You always move the line." The line was never my permanent service. He walked out with the book beneath his arm. On the 87th day, the county posted the agenda for its recommendation meeting at the Alpuni Center. Holt Plumbing appeared as the apparent low bidder. Beside the item was a note stating that staff would verify responsiveness and active license status before making the recommendation. I printed the agenda, then I checked the licensing portal. No replacement had been added. Todd called that night. "Are you attending the meeting?" "Yes." "Why?" "It's public." "You don't need to be there. I was named in the bid record and the competency claim. Melissa says she can explain the pending application." "Whose application?" "Mine." "You haven't passed. I'm working on it. The county checks current status." "I know what they check. Then you know why explanation won't change it." He was quiet. Finally, he said, "If you walk into that room, everybody will know you wanted to see it happen. The license record changes whether I'm sitting there or not. But you're going." "Yes." He ended the call. I put the printed agenda beside the board confirmation in my locked desk. 3 days remained in the replacement period. For the first time since I filed, I knew the one thing I had refused to assume. Todd was not going to find a qualified replacement before it expired. On the 90th day, I checked the portal at 8 in the morning. Holt Plumbing still showed active under the replacement period. At noon, nothing had changed. At 5, the same notice remained. I didn't call Todd. I didn't call the board. The deadline didn't require me to remind anyone. The next morning, the entity record showed forfeited. My individual license remained active. Holt Plumbing's did not. The public record listed the reason in plain language. The company had not qualified a replacement RME within the required period. Todd called at 6:47. It changed. I saw. Melissa says the application system may not have processed mine. Your application doesn't qualify the company. I know, but it shows progress. The rule requires a qualified replacement. Can you file a temporary return? No, just through the meeting. No, we could still fix this before the county checks. The county checks the official status. Then come to the office. We'll call the board together. I'm not calling. His breathing became louder. Dad, this is the last chance. The last day was yesterday. You knew I couldn't pass in time? Yes. And you let it expire. I filed my departure. What happened after that belonged to Holt Plumbing. He ended the call. Melissa emailed me 15 minutes later. The subject line said, "Urgent license correction." The message contained a new temporary RME agreement. This one lasted 30 days. It waived the disputed stipend and promised that neither Todd nor Melissa would pursue any housing arrangement with me. I read the final page. The agreement also allowed Holt Plumbing to tell the county that the forfeiture had been corrected. I replied with 2 words. I decline. She sent another message. Then attend the meeting and explain what you did. I was already planning to attend. The recommendation meeting took place 6 days later. I arrived at the Alpuni Center 20 minutes early. The same gray chairs faced the same front table. This time, more contractors were present. Several county employees sat along one wall with laptops open. Todd and Melissa stood in the corridor outside the procurement room. Melissa held the blue folder. Todd held nothing. When she saw me, she walked over. "You came?" "Yes." "You want an audience?" "I came because my name is in your bid record. Your name was in our bid until you pulled it." "My license was," Todd said. "Can we talk privately?" The corridor was already quiet enough. The competing contractors kept their distance, but nobody had to strain to hear a raised voice. I said, "Talk." Melissa opened the blue folder and removed the temporary agreement. "Sign this. We can upload it now and ask staff to postpone the item." "No, you haven't even read this version. You emailed it." We removed the extension language, "I saw." "We'll withdraw the board petition. That doesn't restore the company's license. We'll correct the county statement. That should happen because it's false." She lowered her voice. "I'll cancel the move. The truck was canceled months ago. I mean the whole thing. Permanently. No shared house, no home assessments, no groceries, no discussions. You get everything you asked for. My house was never bargaining currency." Her mouth tightened. "You're willing to lose your son over one word." The word was no. Todd looked toward the meeting room door. "Dad, if you sign, can you at least say you're willing to serve while the board processes it?" "I'm not willing. We can't change the status without you." "I know. That's why this feels like punishment. It is a boundary you refuse to prepare for." Melissa held out the agreement. "You used to care about this family." I left the paper in her hand. A county employee opened the meeting room doors. People began moving inside. Melissa said, "Once they call the item, you can't take this back. The filing became effective 96 days ago." "You know what I mean." "Yes." I entered the room. Todd sat beside Melissa in the front row. I chose a chair 3 rows behind them. 2 contractors I recognized sat across the aisle. One gave me a small nod. The procurement officer called the meeting to order. She reviewed 2 routine items before reaching the plumbing contract. Staff distributed a 1-page recommendation sheet. Holt Plumbing appeared at the top as the apparent low bidder. Beneath the company name was a line marked license verification. The word beside it was failed. Melissa turned halfway around and looked at me. The procurement officer began. At bid opening, Holt Plumbing held an active entity license in the required classification. During evaluation, the listed responsible managing employee filed a disassociation. The company was given the applicable period to qualify a replacement. She looked down at the staff report. As of this morning's verification, the entity license is forfeited. Nobody spoke. The air conditioner clicked on above us. She continued. The solicitation requires the bidder to maintain an active license through award. Staff therefore finds the bid non-responsive. Melissa raised her hand. The officer looked at her. "Are you a representative of Holt Plumbing?" "Yes." "Melissa Holt, company manager. We need to correct part of that record. You may speak at the microphone." Melissa carried the blue folder to the front. Todd stayed seated. She placed the folder on the lectern. "The RME disassociation is disputed," she said. It arose from a family misunderstanding, and the board was asked to review whether Charles Holt fully understood the impact of what he filed. Several people shifted in their chairs. Melissa continued. "Mr. Holt is present today. He remains individually licensed. Holt Plumbing has also submitted an application for Todd Holt to pursue his own qualification." The procurement officer said, "Has Todd Holt qualified as the replacement RME?" "Not yet, but the process has started. Has the entity license been restored?" "We believe it can be." That wasn't my question. Melissa gripped the sides of the lectern. "No, not yet." The officer looked at a county attorney seated near the wall, then back at Melissa. "Our review is based on current official status. A possible future qualification does not satisfy the solicitation." Melissa opened the folder. "The family issue is relevant because the disassociation may not have been a settled decision." The officer said, "The board record shows Mr. Holt confirmed the filing after your petition. He was upset. That is not a license category." A few people looked down to hide their reactions. The officer turned toward me. "Mr. Holt, because your intent has been questioned in the bidder's submission, I'll ask one narrow question. Do you dispute the board record showing that you voluntarily disassociated on the stated date?" I stood. "No. Do you currently serve as Holt Plumbing's RME?" "No, thank you." I sat down. That was all I needed to say. The decisive fact wasn't the truck, the mail, the consultant, or the groceries. It was the written disassociation I had filed using my own credentials. The date started one ordinary replacement period. Holt Plumbing had allowed it to expire. Melissa remained at the microphone. Mr. Holt's decision was connected to a disagreement about family living arrangements. The officer said, "That does not alter the entity license status. It explains why the filing shouldn't determine a $680,000 award. The solicitation determines that." Melissa turned toward the chairs. "Todd." He looked up. "Tell them we were resolving it." Todd didn't move. She said his name again. He stood slowly and walked to the second microphone. The officer asked, "Are you Todd Holt, company co-owner?" "Yes." "Do you have information that the official license status is incorrect?" Todd looked at Melissa. Then he looked back at me. "No," Melissa whispered. "Todd?" He faced the procurement table. "My father told us he was ending the RME relationship. He gave us the rules and the deadline." The room stayed quiet. Todd continued. He understood what he filed. We expected him to change his mind. We did not qualify a replacement. Melissa stepped away from the lectern. The procurement officer asked, "Are you disputing staff's finding?" Todd swallowed. "No, thank you." He returned to his chair without looking at Melissa. That was the belief change. Until that moment, Melissa had offered the room two versions. In hers, an older man had become confused during a family dispute and damaged a healthy company by mistake. Todd removed that version himself. He did not blame me. He did not ask the county to rescue him from the deadline. He admitted Holt Plumbing had relied on my surrender and failed to replace me. The procurement officer closed the company file. Staff's finding stands. Holt Plumbing's bid is non-responsive due to inactive entity license status. She stated that procurement would proceed under the solicitation with the next eligible bidder. No one applauded. There was no dramatic reaction from the competing contractors. A few people wrote notes. One closed his folder. The meeting moved to the next item. Holt Plumbing had lost the county award in less than 10 minutes. The mechanism was the one Melissa had tried to treat as temporary. My filed disassociation ended my service. The replacement period expired. The entity license forfeited. The announced license check found exactly what the public record showed. Nothing else was needed. I remained seated until the meeting adjourned. Melissa left first. She carried the blue folder against her chest and walked quickly into the corridor. Todd stayed near the front table. When I passed him, he said, "I'm going to correct the county statement about you." "Good. I should have done it before." "Yes." He nodded. Outside, Melissa waited beside the elevators. She looked at me. "You got what you wanted." Before I could answer, Todd said, "Stop." She turned toward him. "We lost because he left." Todd shook his head. "We lost because we didn't replace him." "You heard him say no in front of everyone." "I heard him say the same thing he's been saying." Melissa stared at her husband. Todd pressed the elevator button. Then he said, "Dad didn't forget. We just kept waiting for his answer to become ours." Melissa turned on him. "You're taking his side now?" "I'm telling the truth. After I carried that company for 4 years." Todd pressed the elevator button again. "This isn't about sides. It became about sides when he filed. No, it became about deadlines when he filed." We missed ours. The elevator doors opened. Melissa stepped inside alone. She held the doors with one hand. "You coming?" Todd looked at her. "In a minute." She released the doors. They closed between them. Todd and I stood in the corridor. He said, "I don't know what happens next. You stop contracting until the company is qualified. I know that part. Then do that part first." A few contractors passed us on their way out. One man shook Todd's hand and said, "Hard meeting?" Todd nodded. Another stopped beside me. "Sorry it came out like that, Charles. The record is clear now." He nodded and left. That was the social consequence. People had heard Melissa question my competence. They had also heard Todd correct her. I couldn't make them forget either part. Todd said, "I'll send a correction today. To the county and the board, yes, and withdraw the petition. I'll tell Melissa." "No. You're a co-owner. Decide what you're doing." He looked toward the elevator. "I'm withdrawing it, then put that in writing." He nodded. I took the stairs. That afternoon, Todd copied me on 2 emails. The first went to county procurement. It stated that my disassociation had been voluntary and understood, and that Holt Plumbing withdrew any suggestion otherwise. The second went to the licensing board. Todd withdrew the company's administrative petition and acknowledged the replacement deadline had expired. Melissa's name appeared nowhere in the messages. At 5, she emailed me directly. She wrote that Todd had no authority to speak for her and that she continued to believe my decisions were harmful and personal. She said I had used a technical rule to destroy a company that supported my own family. I read the message once. Then I moved it into the company folder. I didn't answer. The next morning, Holt Plumbing stopped taking service calls. Todd called every customer with unfinished work. Jobs that had reached a safe stopping point remained there. Deposits for work that hadn't begun were returned. Existing customers received copies of their records so they could hire another licensed company. I knew because Todd sent me a list. He did not ask me to approve it. At the top of the email, he wrote, "For your records only." That small sentence told me he had started separating my role from his decisions. 3 days later, I drove past the office. A paper sign was taped inside the glass door. Holt Plumbing is not accepting work. The Blue County folder sat on Melissa's desk. The room behind it was dark. I kept driving. Nathan called that evening. Dad told me they're closing. They can't operate under the forfeited license. Mom says it's temporary. It might be if they qualify the company later. Do you think they will? I don't know. He was quiet. Mom wants me to stop visiting you. What did you say? I told her I'm not choosing for her, and she doesn't choose for me. How did that go? Badly? I'm sorry. I'm not. His answer came too quickly. Then he softened it. I mean, I'm sorry she's angry. I'm not sorry I said it. That makes sense. He asked, "Can I come by Saturday?" Yes. Do you need anything? No? Okay, I'll still come. Melissa didn't call me again. A week after the meeting, Todd brought 2 plastic toolboxes to my workshop. He set them on the floor. I checked these against your list. I opened the first box. My pipe cutters were inside, along with the pressure gauges, hand tools, and a drain camera I had loaned him during the company's first year. The second box held smaller items. Several were scratched. One wrench had blue paint on the handle. Everything was usable. The red pipe wrench is missing, I said. I know. Where is it? I think it's in the second truck. The truck's at the yard. Find it. I will. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a company check covering the unpaid stipend through the effective date. Melissa didn't approve this, he said. You both own the company. She froze outgoing payments after the meeting. How did you issue it? I used my authority as co-owner. The work was done. The payment was due. I looked at the amount. It matched my calculation. Thank you. He nodded toward the tools. I should have returned these years ago. You were using them. I kept buying new equipment while yours stayed in the trucks. That happened. He shifted his weight. The office lease ends next month. We're selling one truck and returning the other to the lender. After refunds and bills, there won't be much left. What about your house? We're staying there. Can you afford it? Barely. We cut everything else. I waited for him to ask me for money. He didn't. Instead, he said, I accepted a job. What kind? Service plumber, salary, benefits, regular hours. Under whom? Another licensed contractor. I start Monday. Are you still taking the examination? Yes. When? Next month. Good. He glanced at the locked desk. I'm not asking you to sponsor another company. I know. I need you to hear me say that. I heard. He sat on the stool. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I used you. I leaned against the bench. You depended on my license. No, I used you. He looked at his hands. Every time you questioned something, I made you feel like you were hurting me. I knew you'd show up if I sounded overwhelmed. I didn't help him finish. He continued. When Melissa started talking about the house, I thought you'd say no and then give in. You usually gave in. That's true. I let her tell Nathan you forgot because correcting her would have ended the plan. That's also true. He swallowed. I'm sorry. I nodded once. The apology didn't return the company. It didn't remove the competency claim from the people who had read it. It didn't change the afternoon Nathan stood in the guest room holding a tape measure. Todd seemed to understand that. He didn't ask whether I forgave him. He said, What do I do now? Go to work Monday. With us. I don't know yet. His face tightened, but he stayed quiet. I said, You can call me. That doesn't mean I'll answer every time. Fair. You can visit if you ask first. Without Melissa, Yes. He looked toward the floor. She's my wife, I know. You're asking me to leave her out. Of my house, my license, and my finances. What about holidays? We're not deciding holidays today. He nodded slowly. I can live with that. You may have to. He stood. At the door, he turned. Mom wouldn't have wanted us like this. I looked at Lori's wrench on the bench. Your mother isn't here to settle it, I know. Don't bring her in when you need an answer from me. He nodded. You're right, that was different. He didn't explain what he had meant. He didn't tell me how hurt he was. He accepted the boundary and left. Nathan came by Saturday. We drank coffee on the lanai again. He told me Todd had started packing the office and Melissa was selling extra furniture online. Not yours, he added quickly. Theirs. I understood. He looked embarrassed. I'm still getting used to checking what everybody knows. That's not a bad habit. He asked whether I had heard from Melissa. No. She says she won't apologize for protecting the family. That's her choice. She also says Dad betrayed her at the meeting. He told the truth. That's what I told her. I looked at him. You don't have to carry messages between us. I know. Then don't. He nodded. We changed the subject. He told me about work, a neighbor's loud dog, and a restaurant he wanted me to try. Not one thing required a signature, inspection, or loan. When he left, he took his coffee cup to the sink. He paused beside the counter where he had left the tape measure months earlier. It's still here. I know. Do you want me to take it? Yes. He picked it up and put it in his pocket. 2 weeks later, Todd passed my house while driving his new employer's service truck. He didn't turn into the driveway. He called that evening. I saw you outside. I saw the truck. How's it look? Clean. It isn't mine. I know. He laughed softly. Then he said, I wanted to stop, but I hadn't asked. Good. Another pause followed. Can I come by next Saturday? What for? Coffee. I looked through the workshop window at the empty space where the returned tools had been stacked. Call Friday, I said. If you still want coffee, we'll set a time. He called Friday at 4:20. I still want coffee, he said. Saturday at 9. I'll be there. He arrived at 8:58. He parked on the street instead of pulling into my driveway. When I opened the door, he was standing on the front step with empty hands. No folder? I asked. No folder, no broken valve, no broken valve. I let him inside. We drank coffee at the kitchen table. For the first few minutes, we talked about the weather. Then Todd told me about his new job. His supervisor checked every service ticket before the crew left. Todd didn't like it at first. I kept thinking he didn't trust me, he said. Did you ask him? Yes. What did he say? He said, checking work is his job. That sounds familiar. Todd smiled. It did after he said it. He told me the company kept regular hours unless someone was assigned emergency duty. He received a paycheck on the same day every 2 weeks. He didn't prepare estimates at midnight or use household savings to cover payroll. Melissa hates that I'm working for somebody else, he said. How do you feel? Relieved. He looked surprised by his own answer. Then he added, embarrassed too. Both can be true. We finished the coffee. Todd carried his mug to the sink. He didn't ask whether he could borrow a tool. He didn't bring up the county contract. When he reached the kitchen door, he stopped. Same time next week? No. His face dropped slightly. I said, call Friday. He nodded. Right. That became the pattern. Some Fridays he called, some he didn't. When he called, I decided whether a visit worked for me. Sometimes we drank coffee. Once we ate lunch on the lanai. Another time, he stayed only 15 minutes because I had somewhere to be. He never arrived without asking. A month after the county meeting, the Holt plumbing office closed for good. Todd returned the keys to the landlord. The company remained inactive. He and Melissa sold one truck, paid what they could, and kept their house. I didn't contribute money. Nobody moved into mine. One evening, Todd called while driving home from work. I have a plumbing question. Company work? Yes. Then ask your supervisor. I know. I caught myself after I dialed. Good, he laughed. I'm getting off the phone now. Drive safely. The call lasted less than a minute. That mattered because he didn't turn it into a test. He didn't say I had refused to help my son. He used the line we had drawn and went back to the person whose license covered the work. A week later, he called for a different reason. My examination is next month. I remember. Would you help me study? What kind of help? Ask me questions. Tell me when I'm wrong. No company sponsorship? No. No agreement to serve as your RME afterward? No. No money? He took a breath. No. I'm asking you to help me study. That was the first clean request Todd had made in a long time. I said, bring the book Saturday. We sat in the workshop for 2 hours. I asked him about job planning, safety, contracts, and supervision. He knew the field work. He struggled with the parts he used to let Melissa handle. When he guessed, I stopped him. Don't give me the answer you think I want. I'm trying. Then say you don't know. He looked at the page. I don't know. Good. Now find it. He found it. The next Saturday, he returned with marked pages and his own list of questions. He had studied during lunch breaks. I could tell because the paper had grease along one edge. He didn't pass the examination on his first attempt. He called me from the parking lot afterward. I missed it. By how much? Enough. When can you take it again? He told me. Are you going to? Yes. All right. He waited. I said, do you want sympathy or study help? Both. I'm sorry you missed it. Thank you. Bring the score breakdown Saturday. He did. We worked on the weak sections. I helped because he asked directly and because I wanted to. No stipend appeared. No license was attached. When he left, the responsibility went with him. Nathan continued visiting on his own schedule. One Sunday, he brought food from the restaurant he had mentioned. We ate on the lanai while Todd was at work. Nathan said, Mom thinks you and Dad are pretending everything is fine. We aren't. That's what I told her. How is she? He looked toward the yard. Angry, mostly at Dad. Don't report on her for me. I wasn't trying to. I know. He nodded. Then he told me about the restaurant's terrible parking lot. Melissa never apologized. She withdrew nothing herself, because Todd had already corrected the company record. She did send my missing workshop key in a plain envelope. There was no note. The key no longer opened anything. I placed it in the metal scrap bin. Several months later, I saw Melissa at a hardware store. We reached the same aisle from opposite ends. She stopped beside the faucet displays. Charles. Melissa. She looked older than she had at the county meeting. I probably did too. Todd says you're helping him study. Yes. So, you'll help with that, but you wouldn't help save the company. Those are different things. They're different because you decided they were. Yes. She looked at a boxed faucet. We're still paying for what you did. So am I. She turned toward me. What did it cost you? My relationship with my son, my name in a competency petition, 4 years of work. You got Todd back. Partly. She gave a small, humorless smile. And I'm the price? You're outside my license, my money, and my house. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. She picked up the faucet box. I still think you wanted to punish me. I wanted the dependency to end. Same result. No. She walked past me. I didn't follow her. That was our relationship after Holt Plumbing closed. Civil, if we crossed paths. Nothing more. Todd didn't ask me to change it. The next time he visited, he said, Melissa told me she saw you. She did. She was upset. I know. He waited, perhaps expecting me to ask what she said at home. I didn't. Then he said, I'm not going to carry messages. Good. I also won't ask you to invite her. Good. He nodded. That's all. It was a small test, but he passed it. Another came when my water heater began leaking at the lower seam. I found the puddle early in the morning. The heater was old, and there was no point repairing it. My first impulse was to wait. I knew Todd would call eventually. I could mention the leak without asking. He would offer to help, and I could pretend the help had been his idea. I stood beside the leaking heater and heard Lori's old sentence in my head. Use a full sentence. I called Todd. He answered, Everything okay? My water heater is leaking. I can come after work. I'm asking if you'll help me replace it Saturday. Yes, I'll buy the heater and materials. Okay, I don't need your employer involved. Understood. He came Saturday morning in his own car. He brought work gloves and nothing from his employer's truck. We removed the old heater together. I handled the purchase. Todd did most of the lifting because my shoulder still bothered me. When the new heater was connected, I checked the work. Todd smiled. You inspecting me? My house. Fair. We tested it and cleaned the floor. I offered him money for the day. He shook his head. You asked your son for help. Yes. So, let me help. I put my wallet away. Afterward, we ate sandwiches at the kitchen table. He didn't turn the favor into a request. I didn't turn it into proof that everything was repaired. He went home. The following week, the board closed the old administrative review file. The final notice said my disassociation remained effective from its original date. Holt Plumbing remained inactive. I put the notice in the locked desk. I did not take out another RME agreement. Todd sat for his examination again. This time, he passed. He came to the workshop with the result folded in his pocket. "I got it," he said. "I knew what you meant." He laughed. Then he handed me the paper. I read it and gave it back. "What are you going to do? Keep my job, for now? For as long as it makes sense. I need to learn the business without making everybody around me carry it." That sounded like his own answer. He didn't ask to reopen Holt Plumbing. He didn't ask to use my name, house, tools, or money. I held out my hand. "Congratulations." He shook it. That was all the ceremony he wanted. The guest room stayed a guest room. Lori's sewing table remained against the wall. Nathan never measured it again. No dresser arrived and no moving truck pulled into my driveway. Sometimes Nathan stayed overnight after a late dinner. He asked first. He used the room without moving the table. Todd visited the house, but he didn't have a key. That mattered less over time because he learned to knock. The old wound didn't disappear. I still noticed when Todd called only because he needed something. The difference was that I could hear the request without turning it into belonging. Sometimes I said yes, sometimes I said no. Sometimes he called with nothing to ask. If you stayed with me through all of this, leave a comment and subscribe if you'd like to hear another story like mine. One Friday afternoon, Todd called while I was sweeping the workshop. I found the red pipe wrench. Where? Behind the seat in the old truck. The buyer pulled the seat forward. "Is it damaged?" "Just dirty." "Bring it tomorrow." "Can I stay for coffee?" "Yes, 9 o'clock. He arrived on time. The wrench was wrapped in an old shop towel. Todd unwrapped it and set it on the bench. The red handle was chipped, but the jaw moved cleanly. "I oiled it," he said. "I can see that. I should have found it sooner. You found it now." He looked toward the kitchen. "I'll get the coffee." "No, sit down." I went inside, filled the mugs, and carried them back through the open workshop door. Todd cleared a space among the tools, and I placed 2 coffee mugs beside Todd's returned pipe wrench on the workshop bench.